December 3rd, 2011. A drama fantasy series called Once Upon a Time premiered on ABC Family. It was created by Edward Kitsis and Adam Horowitz, and it changed the game of fairy tale retellings for the foreseeable future. This is how it happened. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I can't even see that with a straight face anymore. Welcome if you're new, welcome if you're not new. Today we are discussing the early 2010s most iconic television drama series, Once Upon a Time. If you knew me at 13 years old, I'm sorry. Because at 13 years old, every day for 2 years, I would watch Once Upon a Time, the newest episode, or maybe I was catching up on Netflix on this very iPad, that's where I watched it, and I would show up at church snack supper, and Once Upon a Time was all I would talk about for like 2 years. But yeah, so I'm a bit of an expert, for those of you who weren't there. Before we get into it, this video was inspired by all of the long-form kind of content videos you've been seeing around. So like Jenny Nicholson, Mike's Mike, especially Carrie Can Read, her ACOTAR videos are what made me sit down and rewatch Once Upon a Time and film this video. So if you want to support this absolutely unhinged content, please give my video a like, comment down below. Just look at me and tell me I make AdSense. You can't. You can't. I don't make AdSense, and that's okay. And also, if I know you in real life and I sent you this video, don't text me back and tell me you like the video. Comment down below. It's for the algorithm. Let's get into it. Okay, so the way this works is that there are going to be two congruent plot lines happening at the same time. One, we are either in Storybrooke or like our real world as we would see it now. The second one, we are in the Enchanted Forest, so the fantasy realm, and it's a flashback. So anything in the Enchanted Forest, at least in this season, has happened in the past. Season 2 is a different story. We're not there yet. So I'll be switching between Storybrooke and the Enchanted Forest. So just remember, Storybrooke is right now, and the Enchanted Forest, 28 years ago. We'll get into that. Very often we are following the same characters in both Storybrooke and the Enchanted Forest. So you'll kind of see how that works. So here we have Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot. We start with opening titles. Once upon a time, there was an enchanted forest filled with all the classic characters we know, or think we know. One day, they found themselves trapped in a place where all their happy endings were stolen. Our world. This is how it happened. Are you ready? Are you ready? We open. We meet Prince Charming, and he is riding so fast. He is riding like hell. Is he too late to save Snow White? Prince Charming. He's riding like hell to save Snow White. Where are the dwarves? Where are the dwarves? He comes across Snow White and the 7 dwarves in the woods, and guess, where's my wand? Guess who is in the glass coffin asleep under the sleeping curse surrounded by the dwarves? You know the scene, we all know the scene. Snow White. And we all think she's dead. We all think she's dead. And he's like, please, just let me say goodbye. So he kisses her, because that's how it works. So he kisses her, and she wakes up, because that's how it works. And we get this like burst of magic. It's beautiful. I'll put a clip in. And that was the kiss of true love. And she wakes up from the sleeping curse, and she goes, you found me. And he says, did you ever doubt I would? Remember that. So this is the end of the story we know, but it's only the beginning. We flash forward, they're in the Great Hall, they're getting married, they're surrounded by all of their friends. We'll meet the friends in a minute. But who interrupts their wedding? None other than, where's my wand? Regina, the evil queen. So she walks in, we get this absolutely incredible like panning shot of this awful CGI. And she's like, oh, am I late for the festivities? And they're like, get away. Because, you know, she's the evil queen. We know the evil queen, she cursed Snow White. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, but I have a gift for you. You know what I'm going to do? My gift for you is this day, this one day, to be happy. Because I will be destroying your happiness like tomorrow. Or like in 9 months, whenever I get the curse ready. She has something up her sleeve to destroy their happiness and all their friends, but their friends aren't here yet. And we don't know what it is. And she goes, I will take everything you love forever. I shall destroy your happiness if it is the last thing I do. And Prince Charming goes, hey, and he throws his sword at her. But before it can hit her, she vanishes because she has magic. Now, we are back in our world. We meet our very important character, Emma Swan. And Emma Swan, currently, at the moment, she's dressed up. She looks gorgeous. She is gorgeous. The actress is gorgeous. She's so beautiful. She is on a hot date with this dude named Ryan. And he's not very relevant, but so that's why he didn't actually get his actual character printed out. They sit down, they're getting to know each other. She's like, hey, I'm Emma. We learn that it's her birthday. We also learn that she's an orphan and doesn't have any family, which is why she's spending her birthday on a Tinder date. So she's reading him. She's like, hold on. Like, let me read you for a second. You're super hot and sexy. Oh, and by the way, you embezzled all those funds, stole the money, skipped town, and left your wife. And he's like, this is not a Tinder date. You are a bail bondsman. And she goes, bail bonds person, because, she's a woman, feminism. So when I was 13, I did not know what a bail bonds person was. I just thought it had something to do with James Bond. And so that's what that means. So he runs away from the restaurant. She goes after him because her job is to deliver people to the police. And she catches him in his car and she's like, you should just listen, go back to your family. You're gonna face the law, but go talk to your wife and kids. And he's like, the hell do you know about family? And she hits him in the head so that he hits the steering wheel. She's like, nothing. I don't know anything about family. So she goes back to this really nice apartment in Boston that we never see again. It has floor to ceiling windows, overlooking Boston. And she's supposed to be this poor-ish orphan, But anyway, she goes back, she kicks off her shoes because she's, hardworking woman at the end of the day. And she has a candle and she's sitting there and she makes a wish because it's her birthday. And she's 28. Remember that. As soon as she makes the wish with a candle, she hears a knock on her door. So she goes to open the door, and who is there but a 10-year-old child? And this 10-year-old child, she opens the door and she's like, the hell are you doing? And he's like, hey, my name's Henry. I'm your son. And she's like, the hell? No. And he barges into the apartment. He's like, you got orange juice? What's up? And she's like, hold on. I do not have a son. He's like, yeah, you do. Did you give up a baby for adoption 10 years ago? And she's like, and he says, well, that's me. It's like, do you have any juice? She goes, she takes a minute. She's like, okay, hold on. I have one skill, and I can always tell when someone's lying. And he goes, okay, use your superpower. She's like, you're not lying, are you? He's like, no, I'm your son that you gave up for adoption 10 years ago. And so he's like, please come with me to Storybrooke. That's where I grew up. That's where my adoptive mom is. And she's like, fine, but only to take you home to your mom. Storybrooke is in Maine. So they get in the car in her yellow bug that she drives everywhere for 7 seasons, and they go to Storybrooke, Maine. Now we are back in the Enchanted Forest. And Snow White is pregnant, and she looks so good. Let me put up a picture. She looks so cute in this little outfit. And she's charming. She's freaking out because she's like, I'm pregnant. The evil queen 9 months ago just told us that we were going to all be, she was going to destroy our happiness. I need to protect my baby. Please let me talk to him. And Charming is like, hell no, you're not talking to him. And she's like, I have no choice. Who is him? None other than is Rumplestiltskin, a sorcerer who's locked up in their dungeon, in the basement of their palace. So he's a sorcerer, and she's like, I know you know what the evil queen is planning. What is he planning? And he's like, I will tell you as long as you tell me the name of your baby. And Charming's like, no. But Snow is like, I don't know about this. And she's like, tell me first. And he's like, okay. The queen has created a powerful curse that's going to send you to an awful prison for all of eternity, and you're going to lose all of your happy endings. And they're like, okay. See ya. And they're walking away, and he's like, no. You promised me her name. And Charming's like, it's a boy. We're not telling you his name. It's a boy. And Snow, because Rumple's like, Snow, I know you know her name. I know you know it's a girl. She turns around and she's like, Emma. The girl's name is Emma. Who do we know that's Emma? Got it. So we're back in Storybrooke. And they're in the, or no, we're not in Storybrooke yet. We're back in our world. Why does it look like that? And Emma's in the car with Henry, and he's got this storybook that he's looking at in the car. Looks like this. Oh, that's upside down. Looks like that. And she's like, yo, kid, what's up with your... She's like, yo, kid, what's up with your storybook? He's like, I don't know if you're ready. And she's like, trust me, I'm ready for a couple fantasy stories. And he's like, okay, so we're going to Storybrooke, the town. And I have this storybook. And he claims that everything in this storybook happened in real life. And you know what's in the storybook? Stories of Snow White and Prince Charming, of Rumplestiltskin, of the evil queen, of their daughter. Ryan doesn't matter past this point. I'll probably remove him eventually. She's like, am I in that storybook? And he's like, yeah, but I don't know if you're ready. And she's like, try me. He's like, well, you're the daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming. And she's like, okay, so, right. And so everyone in this town is a fairy tale character. And he's like, yeah, they've been trapped for 28 years. You're supposed to come and break the curse, after 28 years. And she's like, so why aren't they escaping? He's like, well, they don't have their memories. And she's like, oh, of course they don't have their memories. Like, she thinks this kid's crazy. And so they get to Storybrooke, and they see that the clock tower hasn't moved in 28 years. Like, it's just like a, clock face circle. And she's like, so that's your proof that time is frozen. And he's like, well, duh. Anyway, she's like, no way, let's get back to your mom. Who is Henry's adopted mother? None other than Regina Mills, the evil queen, or the supposed evil queen. And she's like, well, Emma's like, well, of course you think your mom's the evil queen. Everyone thinks their mom's the evil queen. And he's like, no, she is the evil queen. Sorry, Regina. So we meet Regina Mills herself, and she's like, oh my God, Henry, you ran away. And Emma's like, yeah, he actually found me. I'm his birth mom, but sorry, I'm not here to intrude. Like, I'm going to, giddy up and go. She's like, okay, no way. Do you want to have a couple drinks with me? Because it's crazy. My kid just ran away, hopped on a bus to Boston across the state. And Emma's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so they're talking, and Emma's like, yeah, I think it just has to, like, this whole running away thing has something to do with his, like, fairy tale, obsession. And Regina's like, his what? She's like, oh, you don't know, like, he thinks everyone in this town is a fairy tale character. And he thinks you're the evil queen. And she's like, interesting, well, see ya. Like, have a good drive home. And Emma's like, never gonna see you again. No. So Emma's trying to leave, but Henry had left her the storybook in her car. She's like, Jesus Christ. And then she looks up from looking at the storybook, and there's a wolf in the road. And she, like, right on the town line, there's a sign that says leaving Storybrooke. It's very important. And there is a wolf on the road, and she, like, veers to, like, get away from it, and crashes and passes out. So now we are back in the Enchanted Forest, and we zoom in to a war council meeting with Snow, Charming, the dwarves. Let me get some more friends on the board. Okay, so we zoom in on this war council meeting. We have Little Red Riding Hood there, her granny, Geppetto, Pinocchio, the dwarves, the Blue Fairy. And we find out from the Blue Fairy, who is like one of the proponents of good magic, kind of the anti-Rumplestiltskin, but she's not as powerful as him. And we find out there's a magical tree, and from the magical tree, Geppetto and Pinocchio can create a wardrobe that can send one person to this new world. I guess kind of make them, like, save them from the curse, and hide the baby away, because, oh, by the way, we found out from Rumpelstiltskin, when he got Emma's name, that she will be the savior and break the curse in 28 years. I forgot to mention that. That's important. That happened in this scene where he was like, what's her name? What's her name? She's the savior and is going to break the curse. So she is our main girlie. And so our objective is to save Emma. And Snow is pregnant with a baby Emma right now. And they're like, okay, sounds good. Like, let's get this show on the road. Let's get this wardrobe made before the curse comes. and get pregnant Snow in the wardrobe and send her off. And they're like, sounds like a plan. Anyway, but Snow goes into labor, and at the same exact time, the curse starts coming, and the curse is this purple smoke enveloping the land, and with the curse comes the evil queen in her carriage. And so they're like, we can't, like, I have to have it, like, she has to have this baby. She can't cross the castle, get in the wardrobe before she has the baby. And so they're just like, the baby's gonna have to go alone. Like, you're just gonna have to send baby Emma alone into this new world and just pray that she comes in 28 years and breaks the curse. So Snow has the baby. Hold on. And so it really is such a sad scene, because Charming has to take Snow's baby, and she's laying there crying, and he takes the baby, and in one arm he's got the baby, and the queen's guards are coming, so he's like fighting the queen's guards with the baby in his arms. Oh my gosh. And he gets the baby into the wardrobe. He pretty much gets like stabbed, like he's bleeding out, but he gets the baby in the wardrobe and he closes it. And then the guards come, and Charming's on the ground, and Snow's dragging herself to Charming's side, very Rhaenyra Targaryen style. And the guards open the wardrobe, and there's no one there. And the curse is coming, and the evil queen comes in. And she's like, I'm going to destroy your happiness, blah, 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 blah. And Snow's like, actually, psych. I know my husband is bleeding out, and I just had a baby, and my baby's gone. But we still have hope. And the curse comes and whisks everybody away just as Emma got out of there as a baby. So that's how it all happened. Anyway, back in Storybrooke, Emma wakes up in jail for drunk driving. And we meet, well, actually, I think we already met him, but I forgot to mention him. It's very complicated. There's a lot of characters. We meet none other than Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey. Or before he was in 50 Shades of Grey, he was known as Graham, the sheriff of Storybrooke. It's in his Wikipedia, look it up. And she's like, bitch, I wasn't drunk, I saw a wolf. And he's like, Regina's drinks are a little stronger than we all thought they were, aren't they? And she's like, very funny. And so Regina comes into the police station, she's like, hey, why are you locked up? Anyway, Henry's run away again, and everyone's like, why does Henry keep running away? And we're kind of like, it's probably because Emma's back in town, but we don't know for sure. And Emma's like, if you let me out, I'll help. Like, finding people is what I do. I'm a bail bonds person, remember Ryan? And I find people. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So let's go. And so Emma uses her badass, like, stomping on the pavement, breaking down doors. Just kidding, she doesn't do that. That's what Graham does. She uses, like, flash drives and hacker techniques to find out that where's Henry? He had used a credit card on who'syourmama.com to find that Emma was his birth mother. And she's like, whose credit card is this? Regina's like, it's not mine. Turns out it's Mary Margaret Blanchard's credit card, his school teacher. Remember, she doesn't know she's Snow White. The next scene, we meet Mary Margaret Blanchard, and she's teaching a room full of 10-year-olds. She's got a little bird, and she's like, okay, everyone, remember, we're building our bird houses. Like, this is a home. Like, we're not trapping the birds inside, because if we really love them, we have to let them go free. And they'll always come back to us. They'll always find us. Anyway, they're like, hey, so like, class is over. Like, why did you give Henry your credit card? And she's like, I didn't. It's right here. Turns out he had stolen the credit card. She's like, I'm so sorry. Like, she's like, I'm so sorry. It's because I gave Henry that book. And Regina's like, what is up with this book? And Emma's like, you gave Henry the book. And so she had found the book in her closet, and she was like, I know Henry's a sad little boy. Like, he has had a hard life. You know, it's not easy being adopted. And Emma's like, she's like, sorry, I don't mean to, like, judge you, because you're the one that gave him up for adoption. I know you wanted to give him his best chance, but right now Henry needs some hope. And I gave him that book of stories because stories as a whole give us hope. And I was like, well, that's so nice. And Regina's kind of like, you're making my child delusional. What the hell? But I think she had left by then, so I think this was just a conversation between these two, mother and daughter, but they don't know it yet. Anyway, Mary Margaret's like, Regina, I don't know where he is. So Regina stomps away, or she had left a minute ago, and Mary Margaret turns to Emma, and she's like, you might want to check out Henry's castle. He might be there. And Emma's like, okay. So Emma finds Henry at like this abandoned play castle, and she's like, listen, kid, I'm not the daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming. And Henry's like, please just stay for a week and I'll show you, you are the daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming. And Emma agrees to stay for a week because she is kind of realizing that Regina is kind of a hard ass. Like, she's kind of calling her kid delusional. Like, she doesn't believe these stories. She's very mean to Mary Margaret when they're trying to find Henry. Like, Regina is very much a hard ass. And so Emma's like, okay, I'll stay for a week. So also, Regina does not like Emma very much. And so she gets a key to Granny and Red's inn because Granny and Red run an inn and a diner, and that's where a lot of like plot things happen. Like anytime they have to like talk about something, they're like, meet me at Granny's, or like if they defeat an evil person in the later seasons, they're like, let's have a party at Granny's. And so that's what they always do. You should have a family. If you haven't caught on, blue is like family, pink is love. Got it? And so Emma gets her key and she's like, yeah, what's your name? Emma's like, oh, my name's Emma. And someone goes, Emma? And who do we meet? We meet Mr. Gold. Do you see the resemblance? I gave him 2 because he just looks so different and the actor is so good. I always forget that he's like playing 2 totally different characters that are so like the same person. He's like, Emma, what a lovely name. And that's Mr. Gold. So he basically owns the town. Remember him, like we see Granny paying rent to him. We see the nuns, the fairies are the nuns later on. We see them paying rent to him. Everybody owes him rent. And she's like, yeah, cool. So she gets her key, she stays for a week. And we're panning around town as the episode closes. And guess what happens? We pan to the clock tower and the clock ticks for the first time in 28 years. And so everyone's like, whoa, the clock is ticking. We're panning through the hospital, because of course there's a hospital in this drama series. Guess who is in a coma? We pan over him, just sleeping in a coma. And that's it. We end on the shot of the Storybrooke equivalent of Prince Charming. So that's episode 1. We've got it going on. The next episodes will go faster now that we have all of the characters down, ready to rock and roll. Not all of them. There's still a lot over on the bed right there. Okay, now we are on season 1, episode 2, The Thing You Love Most. So we open, everyone in Storybrooke is like, the clock's ticking. That's awesome. At some point, these two confront each other a lot. They do not like each other. So Regina confronts Emma. She's like, I thought I told you to leave Storybrooke. And Emma's like, I'm actually not going to do that. Like, what you going to do? And Regina, oh, by the way, she's the mayor. She's like, I'm the mayor. I can do everything I want. And Emma's like, that's not how being mayor works, but okay. Anyway, we go back to the Enchanted Forest. And Regina, as the evil queen, is about to enact the dark curse along with all these monstery friends that we never see before, but they have to give like a little sacrifice to put in the bubbling pot. Blah, 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 blah. And we also meet her dad, who's kind of a pretty chill guy. Hold on, let me put him on the board. So we meet her dad. His name is also Henry. And guess who named this Henry in the first place? Regina, after she adopted him. That's like, I think we learned that in season 2, but it's not that deep. His name's Henry as well. I guess it's kind of deep because it kind of humanizes her. Anyway, he's kind of wrapped up into this. She's like ready to enact this evil curse, and guess what? It doesn't work. Also, remember that these flashbacks, although they're flashbacks, they're not necessarily in order. So for example, this is after she threatens these two at their wedding, but kind of while she's still pregnant with Emma. So like Emma hasn't been sent into the wardrobe yet. This is like the meanwhile of their war council meeting. So just remember, it gets a little complicated. I'm doing the family tree. I'm not doing the timeline. That's a whole nother shit show. Somehow we find out that Regina had gone to, that's not Maleficent, that is the wrong character. That's the witch from Hansel and Gretel. We're not there yet. Because Regina had traded this dark curse that she wants to use that just failed for the sleeping curse she used on Snow. But the sleeping curse didn't work because obviously we saw Charming wake Snow up. She's like, bitch, your sleeping curse didn't work. And Maleficent's like, I think you should give up on this whole like getting revenge thing because no amount of dark magic can bring someone back from the dead. And that's where we get our first hint of why does Regina hate Snow so much? Who does she need to bring back from the dead? But Regina's like, no. So she fights Maleficent using her magical powers for this curse. She enacts it, and of course, as we saw, it doesn't work because she has to sacrifice the heart of the thing she loves most, because that's part of the curse. Anyway, back in Storybrooke, Emma agrees to help Henry break the curse, kind of, with what he dubs Operation Cobra, so the aka breaking the curse, so that everyone remembers who we are. Henry gives her some book pages to read, book pages that kind of like show where she is that child of Snow White and Prince Charming. Emma goes to Archie. He's not on here yet. So Emma goes to Archie, and so Archie is Henry's therapist. He's everyone's therapist. He's just the town therapist. There's only one therapist in this town. She's worried about him, and he's like, okay, I think that you should go along with this Operation Cobra storybook curse thing, because clearly, like, if we were like, kid, you're crazy, that would crush him, because you're not going to do that to a 10-year-old. So he gives her Henry's file, which is that legal, we don't know. And she's like, okay, like, thank you. At some point, Mary Margaret had revealed to Emma that Henry thinks she's Snow White, and Emma has this moment of like, oh, okay, interesting. And Mary Margaret's like, well, who does he think you are? And she's like, oh, no one important. Emma's in her house reading the file, and guess who shows up at her door? Christian Grey. And he's like, so I hear that you got in a row with Archie. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He gave me the file. And he's like, I know you stole the file. Like, you can have that. That's illegal. And so Emma gets arrested again by Christian Grey. And spoiler alert, Regina, because he called Regina after he gave her the file. And he was like, hey, Regina, like, she got the file. Go for it. We get the sense that everyone's kind of manipulated by Regina at some point. And Mary Margaret bails Emma out of jail because Mary Margaret has this kind of inherent trust in Emma that she can't quite explain. And so Emma, in revenge, goes to Regina's house, and Regina has this like apple tree, and she takes a chainsaw and she like cuts down the apple tree, and Regina's like, what the hell are you doing? And Emma's like, that's my revenge. Like, you just started a war with me. You just framed me. Like, you're hurting my son. I don't like you. And then she cut down the apple tree because, symbolism. Back in the Enchanted Forest, who do we go to when we have a problem? Remember this, we always go to Rumplestiltskin. It's never a good idea, but we do it anyway. So Regina goes to Rumplestiltskin, and she's like, hey, why the hell didn't my curse work? And he's like, bestie, you didn't sacrifice the heart of the thing you love most. And she's like, I sacrificed the heart of my noble steed. She's a horse girl, remember that. It's important later. And he's like, that's not enough. And she's like, tell me, like, what? Like, tell me more. Like, what do you know? And because remember, we have to remember that all magic comes with a price. That's very important. All magic comes with a price. She's like, what's your price? Like, tell me more about this curse. And he's like, fine, if you give me a good life in this new world, like, I'll tell you more about the curse. I'll tell you what you have to do to enact it, and I'll tell you how it might be broken. She's like, fine. And he's like, okay, give me a good life in this new world. And if I ever come to you for anything, you have to help me. And she's like, you do realize that if we go to this new world, you're not going to remember who you are. And she's like, that's okay. Just make this deal right now. And she's like, deal. That's your price. And so that he tells her that in 28 years, a savior, who is the daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming, will come to break the curse. And Regina goes back to her dad. And he's like, oh, hey, how's it going? And she's like, because remember, heart. Anyway, back in Storybrooke. Emma gets kicked out of Granny's inn because Regina reminded Granny that they had a no criminal policy. Meanwhile, Gold goes to Regina, and they're talking, and Regina's like, she's trying to suss it out. Also, we're trying to suss Regina out, because we don't know, like, if she remembers the curse, we don't know. And she's trying to suss out if he remembers the curse. And he's like, do you know who that is? And they're kind of eyeing each other because we don't know if they even remember the Enchanted Forest. But Gold kind of implies that he remembers by implying that Emma is the savior and is going to make some changes in the town. Gold also reveals that he was the one that procured like Henry for adoption back, 10 years ago when Regina had wanted a son because she was sad and she wanted to be a mother, and he had procured Henry for her. And she's like, did you know who Henry was? And he's like, who's to say? And that's the end of that episode. See, now we're rolling through. I forgot to mention that at the end of the episode, evil Queen Regina does indeed kill her dad, and that's how she gets the curse to work. It was a very scary scene for me at 13 years old. She rips out his heart with no warning, and just be prepared for more people getting their hearts ripped out. Season 1, Episode 3, Snow Falls. We open up, we are in a carriage with Prince Charming and someone new. We meet Princess Abigail, and these two are in a carriage together, and they are engaged to be married. So already we're getting the sense that this is maybe before he met Snow White. Because why? We saw them get married, so this has to be before they got married, right? That's how you use your context clues in this show. It's not for the faint of heart. They're in the carriage together, they're bumping along. They don't look very happy. The carriage stops abruptly because a tree has fallen down, and he's like, okay, whatever, I'll go check it out. He's checking out this fallen tree that, crossed the King's Road or whatever. This isn't Game of Thrones, but you get the idea. I think it's actually the Queen's Road because she's on this road a lot. Doesn't matter right now. And he's like, this didn't fall, it was cut. And someone jumps on top of the carriage, and it's an ambush. And so the thief steals a pouch of jewelry. And Prince Charming's like, absolutely not, and runs after the thief. He catches the thief, pins him on the ground. Who is the thief but none other than Snow White, who is currently running from the Queen because the Queen wants her dead. Have you seen Mirror, Mirror? It's the same idea, except it's just two different stories. Here's Lily Collins as Snow White, here's Ginny Goodwin as Snow White. They both run from the evil Queen at some point. And so, she escapes by hitting him over the head with a rock and runs off. He realizes she's stolen his jewels, that he needs to marry Abigail. So he shouts after her, wherever you go, I will find you. I will always find you. Anyway, so we go back to Enchanted Forest, and Mary Margaret, where is Dr. Whale? We open, Mary Margaret is on a bad date with Dr. Whale. She's at Granny's, she leaves, and she sees Emma kind of camping out in her car, because remember, she got kicked out of Granny's, right? And she's like, Emma, you can stay with me. And Emma's like, I'm not really a roommate type of person. Remember, because Emma has trust issues. This is shoved down her throat. Emma Swan is not a trusting girly. So meanwhile, Henry's class, where's Henry? His class, remember his teacher's Mary Margaret, is volunteering at the hospital. And he sees, this guy, and his name is John Doe because that's the name they gave to people in a coma. And he's in a coma, and he's like, hey, Miss Blanchard, that's your husband. And Mary Margaret's like, I don't know about that. And he's like, please, you're Snow White, this is Prince Charming. And so Mary Margaret agrees to read John Doe the story of how Charming and Snow meet from the storybook, which is the rock hitting the thief, the whole thing. Because, she doesn't want to hurt Henry, and they're trying to, work through some of Henry's trauma, collectively, as a community. It takes a village to raise a traumatized 10-year-old. But Mary Margaret does, and she goes and she starts reading the story of how Snow White and Prince Charming met, and guess what happens? John Doe grabs her hand in his sleep, and she's like, Dr. Whale, Dr. Whale. And Dr. Whale comes in, and she's like, he just grabbed my hand. And Dr. Whale's like, what? Nothing in his charts, his little beep, 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 beep. Nothing changed. And she's like, okay, whatever. He's like, it's getting late. I think you should go home. She's like, you're so right. I probably just imagined it. He leaves, and Dr. Whale gets on the phone. He's like, hey, bestie, guess what just happened? Take a wild guess as to who he was calling. Who is the manipulator of this town? The evil queen. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Snow White gets caught in a net trap set by Prince Charming, and he's like, told you I would find you. And she's like, aren't you a real Prince Charming? And he's actually like, yeah, it turns I have a name. It's James. And she's like, I kind of like Prince Charming better. Prince Charming's like, so those jewels you stole, I need them back. And she's like, that's actually going to be an issue because I did sell them. And he's like, what do you mean you sold them? Because we're going to get them back, or else I'm going to sell you out to the evil queen because I know who you are, Snow White. She's got wanted signs everywhere. That's kind of the context. It's not a secret that the girl running around thieving from people on the Queen's Road is Snow White. So they decide to go get the jewels back from the trolls. The next day in Storybrooke, we're back in Storybrooke, John Doe is missing from the hospital. He's gone. Turns out Regina is his emergency contact because he had been found on the side of the road by her, years ago for the plot. She was the one that found him, or did she? We don't know. So Emma, Regina, Mary Margaret, and Graham check the security footage, and it turns out that John Doe was seen leaving the hospital in the direction of the forest in the town. So they go after him. Back in the enchanted forest, so they try and get the jewels back from the trolls. They end up having to fight the trolls. And Snow had this little bottle of magic around her neck that would turn anyone into like a bug to be squashed. And it was like she was clearly saving it for the evil queen. But he gets in a tussle. He's like being held, I don't know, hostage or whatever. And she uses it to squish the trolls and kill them to save him. And he's like, thank you, but wasn't that for the queen? And she's like, I'll figure out another way to kill her. So they get the jewels back. Turns out Prince Charming was going to give his mother's ring to Abigail, his betrothed. And there's a scene where Mary Margaret or Snow White puts it on and she's like, it's not really my style. And it's like kind of like a moment. Like, you know the scene in Bridgerton where she puts the ring on, where Kate puts the ring on instead of Edwina? It was like that. But, 10 years earlier. And then they part ways and Prince Charming's kind of like, well, if you need anything. She's like, you'll always find me? He goes, always. So that's where the finding thing happens. They shove that down our throat too. It'll come back and back and back. And guess what Emma does for her job is she finds people. Listen, it's a well thought out television show. Let me tell you. So back in Storybrooke, they find James passed out in a river. Mary Margaret does some awful, awful CPR on him. Like, I'm CPR certified. It's my only claim to fame. It's actually going to expire in like 3 months. But it's like, oh my God, awful. But anyway, she gives him the kiss of life and he wakes up. But he doesn't remember anything. So they take him back to the hospital and they're like, who is this guy? Regina's his emergency contact. Guess who comes to see him at the hospital? His wife, Catherine. So Catherine is the same girlie from the carriage. Turns out Regina had found Catherine. Catherine and David, that's his name, had gotten into a fight. And Catherine thought he left for good, but he just got in a car accident. He was in a coma for, I think, years, and she never knew, and she always thought he, left for Boston or something. And Emma, and, Mary Margaret and Henry, too, because Henry's always tagging along, finds this all very strange and convenient. And we end the episode, Mary Margaret's all worried because she thinks he's kind of hot. He's kind of a cutie. And we pan down, she's worrying with her fingers. Guess who's wearing the ring, his mother's ring? Mary Margaret is wearing the green ring that they had stolen back in the enchanted forest. Catherine's not wearing it. Mary Margaret is. But of course they don't remember any of this. Then at the end, Mary Margaret and Emma become roommates because Emma decides to stay in Storybrooke. I'm going to be so tired by the end of this. And you know what? I have a work meeting in 2 hours. And I have to apply for an internship today. Season 1, Episode 4, The Price of Gold. So we open, and guess who's going to a ball? A stepmother, some stepsisters, and guess who's left behind? None other than Cinderella. So Cinderella wants to go to the ball. She's dressed in rags. We know the story. Guess who shows up? Her fairy godmother. Guess who dies 2 seconds later? Her fairy godmother who's killed by Rumplestiltskin. And she's like, did you just kill my fairy godmother? And he's like, don't be scared. She's like, will you help me go to the ball if my fairy godmother's dead? He's like, yeah, for sure. For a price. And she's like, I'll pay it. Just let me go to the ball. Let me be free. And so she gets her beautiful dress, but she owes him a favor down the line. She goes to the ball and she falls for a prince. I'm saying this now, there are so many white boy princes on this show that we never see again, so they're gonna look like that, okay? So back in the enchanted forest, Cinderella gets her happily ever after. She falls in love with Prince Charming, but then Rumpelstiltskin shows up. She's a princess, she's at a ball. But Rumpelstiltskin's like, hey, I remember that price we were talking about? I actually want your firstborn child. I know you're pregnant. Ooh, gross. Anyway, so in Storybrooke, Emma is kind of having a crisis because she doesn't have roots anywhere. She doesn't stay in any place for very long. We kind of learn, this is she's ready to fly away. She's ready to flee whenever shit gets real. But Scottish Christian Grey approaches her and he's like, hey, you did a really good job finding Henry and finding John Doe. Do you want a job as a deputy? And Emma's like, okay, sure. So now she's a cop. So that's good. Regina comes and she's like, hey, bestie, why are you getting a job here? You don't stay in many places for a long time, except for Tallahassee. What was that 2-year stint in Tallahassee about? So she's got all these, she dug into Emma's past and Emma's like, listen, girlie, that's none of your business. What was interesting about Tallahassee? Put a pin in that for season 2. So then Regina leaves. Emma's at Granny's because she always is. She spills like stuff. She spills like hot chocolate all over herself. So she goes down to the laundry room and she meets Ashley, who is down in the laundry room. And she's like, her clothes come out pink, like she's doing laundry. It's not going well. And she starts crying and Emma's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Turns out she's pregnant. It's like she's very pregnant. And Emma and Ashley are talking and Ashley's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm only like 18 and when this baby comes, like, no one's going to take care of it. And Emma, who is also a teen mom and actually had Henry in prison is what we find out because she was in prison for a while, is like, listen, people are going to tell you who you are your entire life. You just have to punch back and say, no, this is who I am. And she's like, Ashley, I believe in you. You can keep this baby because we're kind of wondering, like, she didn't keep Henry. Does she regret it? We don't really know. But with her actions with Ashley, it's a bit of an, she wants Ashley to succeed. And Ashley's like, hell yeah, takes her advice. And in the next scene, we see her breaking into Mr. Gold's pawn shop. She gets caught, she pepper sprays him, and she steals something, and then she tries to leave town. So this thing about leaving town is Henry says that him and Emma are the only ones who successfully leave town. Nobody else can leave town because something bad happens to them. And even in episode 1, I think 1 or 2, we see Emma try and leave town and something bad happens to her. But consistently, no one can really leave town besides these two. Back in Storybrooke, Emma finds the child's father because everyone's in this town. He lives with his dad, and his dad hates Ashley, thinks she's kind of like bottom of the barrel, like not good enough for her son, even though like it takes two to have a baby. So Charming's dad figured out a deal to get Ashley to sell her baby so that she got money and the baby allegedly gets a proper home. And that baby, her baby in Storybrooke, not in the Enchanted Forest, is being sold to Mr. Gold. And Emma's like, what the hell? I'm not letting that happen. So turns out Ruby was helping Ashley run away, but Emma kind of pulls it out of Ruby, like where she's going. And Ruby's like, Ashley's leaving town. And Henry's like, nobody can leave town. It's part of the curse. And Emma's like, shut, like, I know, God. And Henry's right. They find her crashed car and she's about to have this baby. So Emma drives her to the hospital. She has the baby and Gold shows up and Emma's like, actually, like, give me the contract because you're not taking that baby. What is wrong with you? Emma's like, rip up the contract. And he's like, I'm not going to do that because I am the most powerful person in this town. People think it's Regina, but it's actually me. And I don't go around ripping up my contracts. That's not how I keep my power around here. And she's like, fine, make a new deal with me for Ashley's baby. And he's like, okay, Ashley can keep the baby, but you owe me a favor. Emma owes him a favor. And she makes the deal. Put a pin in that. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Cinderella and her Prince Charming collab with James to trap Rumplestiltskin in the mines under the cellar. Remember when he was in like the mines under, or I guess the dungeon under their castle? This is how they get him there. So just remember the timeline, it's a little wonky. She uses a magic quill to trap him, and he's like, oh, you may have me trapped. He's like frozen. But he's like, whatever land you find yourself in, wherever you go, I will have your baby. All magic comes with a price. So Thomas, that's his name, gets taken by whom? Because he goes to get well water. He's like, okay, whatever. I'm going to get you some water because you're pregnant. And she's like, okay, cool. And he leaves, and Rumpelstiltskin gets carted away, and she goes to the well, and she's like, Thomas, where are you? And Thomas is gone. We found him back in Storybrooke, but for all intensive purposes in the Enchanted Forest, he is gone. And that is the price for using magic to trap Rumpelstiltskin. Back in Storybrooke, there's no easy way to say this. This entire episode, Regina was like, hey, Henry, I've got a council meeting. Like, I'll be back. Like, have you go hang out with Emma, whatever. She doesn't have a council meeting. She's actually hooking up with Scottish Christian Grey. So, I don't know. Seems a little bit corrupt. They're hooking up. They're having sex. It's an adult affair. They have this like weird thing. People are allowed to have sex in season 1, but I feel like in season 2, they got younger viewers. I have a feeling. I was definitely very young, and so I bet they were like, no more sex in this show. No more, it's over. But anyway, so these two are allowed to have sex in season 1. So just know that. I don't think anybody ever has sex again in this show, though. And then Tommy Boy shows up to the hospital, and he apologizes to Ashley, and they agree to raise their child together. And that's the end of the episode. Season 1, Episode 5, That Still Small Voice. I don't have a lot of characters for this one because they're all pretty irrelevant, but it centers around Dr. Hopper, Archie. So we open and we meet a young Jiminy, and his parents, who are con artists, they do puppet plays and they pickpocket people. But Jiminy is like, Mom and Dad, this is not good. I want to be good, not bad. Anyway, in the Enchanted Forest, Henry is in therapy with Archie, and they're talking, and Henry is like, the curse is real. Have you ever heard a cricket in Storybrooke? And Archie's like, I don't think I have heard a cricket in Storybrooke. Meanwhile, Emma has become deputy, and they find out that, the mines under Storybrooke, a tunnel has collapsed, and Henry is convinced there's something in the tunnels. Henry thinks this is Emma weakening the curse because she, put down some roots in the town and became deputy. Regina, meanwhile, threatens to, literally destroy Archie's life until he gets Henry to stop believing in the curse. So Archie basically is pressured into telling Henry that he is psychotic. And Henry's like, I'm not psychotic. I thought you believed me. You and Emma believe me, and Mary Margaret, but you all believe me. And so he gets upset and he runs away to go down to the mines that just collapsed. Naturally, Archie feels bad and goes in after him. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Jiminy, a young Jiminy, wants to change his life, so who does he go to? Rumpelstiltskin. He needs to be free of his parents, so Rumpelstiltskin gives him a potion to kill his parents and send them to Rumpelstiltskin so that Rumpel will have his parents. We don't really know why. So Jiminy is like, okay, God, this will get rid of my parents and I can finally be free and I can finally be good. But Jiminy gives his parents the potion. Turns out his parents trick another family with a young son. This innocent family drinks Rumpelstiltskin's potion, which turns the family into creepy dolls. That's what would have happened to Jiminy's parents, but it happened to this random ass family that we never really see again. And this kid comes home and he's like, Mom, Dad, you're a doll. What the hell? So then Jiminy feels awful. It's absolutely horrible. So he wishes on the blue fairy for forgiveness. And he's like, please, let me do anything. And the blue fairy is like, you just ruined this person's life. So I will turn you into a cricket so you can be someone's conscience. And you can be the protector and conscience of this little boy named Geppetto. So this little boy named Geppetto grows up to be this guy, Geppetto, who later is Pinocchio's father, but right now he's just a child whose parents were killed by Rumpelstiltskin. All magic comes with a price. And Jiminy's like, hell yeah, let's do it. So he turns into a cricket, which is nice. And then in Storybrooke too, these two are best friends, which is a subplot. We don't see him yet. He comes in later. Then, so remember how we're in the tunnels in Storybrooke in the mines? So Emma goes down in a harness. Regina's like, let me go down. And Emma's like, respectfully, you've been sitting behind a desk for so many years. I'm boots on the ground kind of girly. So she goes down, and with incredible teamwork, they pull them up, and Hopper goes up to Regina, and he's like, actually, I'm going to treat Henry my way because I'm not going to psychologically damage him because I'm a good therapist. And he's like, Madam Mayor, one of these days, you may find yourself in a custody battle, and the court will consult an expert, me, as to who is the better mother. And right now, you're not looking so good. So I suggest you leave me and my practice alone. Badass. And guess what? The episode ends, and what do we hear? Crickets. The crickets are back in Storybrooke. And we see what's changing. And we also get a panning shot into the mines, and it looks like something is in the mines. Because this whole time, everyone's like, Henry, there's nothing in the mines. But it looks like Snow White's coffin from episode 1 might be in the mines. Interesting. Season 1, episode 6, The Shepherd. So David comes home from the hospital, and they're having a welcome home party, but he is not happy because he doesn't remember anything. He ends up going to Mary Margaret's house during his own coming home from the hospital party. But David is like, Mary Margaret, you found me. I'm in love with you. And he's like, sorry, Catherine. And Mary Margaret is like, no, I just did CPR on you. You're not in love with me. In the Enchanted Forest, we see Prince Charming fighting this bad guy, and he's fighting him to impress. We have 2 new characters in the mix. I don't know if you can see that. That's Prince Charming's father. It's King Midas, who is Abigail's father. So we see Prince Charming like fighting a troll to impress Midas so that he can marry Midas's daughter. He's the guy that turns things into gold. He was in Percy Jackson, The Heroes of Olympus, book 1, The Lost Hero, if you may remember. But so we think James wins, but there's an issue because he turns around, he's like, I won, and he gets impaled by the monster, and he dies. Like, he's dead. Like, he dies, which is an issue because this is King George, and King George needs a prince to his kingdom to marry Catherine so that he can secure the alliance between his kingdom and Midas's kingdom. Are you following along? So James's dad, Prince George, is like, we need help. Who do we go to? You know the answer. Rumplestiltskin. So they go to Rumplestiltskin, and turns out Rumple gave the king a son, this guy that just died, because he couldn't conceive. And he's like, this is so funny actually, because actually James has a twin just chilling in the countryside. Want me to go get him for you? And George is like, yeah, I need that twin. And so we meet the twin shepherd, who is actually David. It's actually Mary Margaret Snow White's David. This guy that got impaled is his twin brother who died. So let me put his twin brother on the board. I forgot to print out a picture of him, but I have an extra one of those white boy Prince Charmings, so that's good. Like, there's so many like boys in this show that like are used as a plot point because someone's in love with them and then they never show up again. Like, you have to understand. But Prince David, I guess Shepherd David, who's got an awful haircut and living with his mom in the countryside, is told by Rumpelstiltskin, like, your brother actually died, and you need to be the prince, and you also need to slay a dragon. And David pretty much doesn't have a choice because everyone kind of threatens his mom, who's not on the board, but she's a lovely lady. I'll put up a picture of her right now. I forgot to put her up there. So David is like, okay, whatever, I'm just a shepherd, but I guess I'll be a prince now. So he goes and he chops the dragon's head off, and he's like, cool, deal's done, gonna go home. And Midas is like, no, you're actually gonna marry my daughter Abigail. Like, we're gonna join our two kingdoms. Who's Abigail? None other than Catherine. We know who Abigail is. And these two, they're clearly not in love, but she's got a sense of duty, and he's being blackmailed? Not even blackmailed. He's just being threatened. He's being straight up threatened. So in Storybrooke, we found out that David has left Catherine, and Regina's like, that can happen because actually, like, Catherine's my friend. Like, I don't want that to happen to my bestie. No, she just doesn't want Snow White and Prince Charming together. So David goes to Mary Margaret, and he's like, hey, meet me at the toll bridge at 8 p.m. because that's where they found him unconscious. And he runs into Regina, who gives him instructions, but then David gets lost again, so goes to Mr. Gold's shop, because he's a pawn shop broker guy. Did I mention that? He's also like the landlord to everyone in the town. So then in the shop, David sees like a wooden windmill, like a small like shepherd's farm. He's like, I remember that. And Gold's like, really interesting. David meets Mary Margaret at the bridge, and he's like, I actually remember Catherine now. Like, it's all coming back, and I don't know if I love you. And Mary Margaret's like, great, because, she's in love with him. She's Snow White. Meanwhile, Emma is driving around on cop patrol, and she sees someone jump out of Regina's window, and she catches Graham Cracker, and she's like, Grammy boy, you're sleeping with Regina. That's not good. So David goes back to Catherine. He's like, baby, I'm yours. Like, I remember now. You're my bestie. You're my wife. At the end of the episode in the Enchanted Forest, we see these two get into a carriage. They're taking the scenic route down the King's Road, and their carriage gets ambushed. So as you can imagine, this whole thing with this group of people happened right before these two met. And that's the end of that episode. Season 1, Episode 7, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. This is such a good episode. Me and Eve were watching this. Oh, it's such a good one. I love this episode. Okay, we open Christian Grey. He's playing darts. He's in Granny's. He's playing darts, and he's upset because Emma just caught him having an affair. He's having a mental breakdown. He goes to Emma, and he's like, girl, I don't feel anything. I don't think I have a heart. Like, nothing, something's wrong with me. And she's like, that's ridiculous. He kisses Emma, and suddenly he remembers. He gets a flashback of what? A wolf. What did Emma see in that first episode when she passed out? A wolf. Anyway, he kissed Emma. That's important. Because remember, Emma's the savior. Like, Emma can make things happen. And Regina doesn't like that. So anyway, love triangle era. you can't think too much about the family tree, because also when you think about it, these two, oh my god, these two, she is her stepmom-in-law. What? Stepmom-in-law? She's her stepmom. We're not even there yet. Oh my god, this is so... She's her stepmom. We'll get to that later. That's a different episode. No, that's this episode. Jesus Christ. Anyway, we zoom in the Enchanted Forest, we zoom in on Snow White in the Evil Queen's castle. Snow White and the Evil Queen are mourning the death of Snow's father. And Regina is like, Snow, like, I know I'm not your real mother, I'm your stepmother, and I just married your dad, like, yesterday. Not yesterday, but you get the idea. But I'm here for you. And Snow's like, thanks so much, stepmom. Love you. Hold on. This is so fucked up. Oh, no. Yeah, we got it. And can you even see that? There we go. And see, do you get it? Okay, because he's her dad, but I'm having a hard time. So he's her dad, stepmom, family tape. Because I could have put them up here, but she's where it gets messed up, because she's also Henry's mom. Got it? Do you understand? So not only is she Henry's adoptive mother, she's also his step-great-grandmother. Because that's his grandmother. Wait. Yeah? No. Yeah. That's his grandmother. Season 2, it gets so much more confusing. There's going to be if we get to season 2, if you want me to do season 2, I will do it because I'm invested. There's going to be a whole nother branch of family over here. It's going to be... Anyway, back to where we were. So Regina's like, bestie, I'm your stepmom. Like, I'm here for you. Turns out Regina had killed him. I am not explaining this well at all. So basically, Regina, who is Snow White's stepmother, hates Snow because allegedly, somewhere along this timeline, Snow White had gotten Regina's true love killed. We haven't seen it yet, and we don't know who Regina's true love is, but that's why she hates Snow so much. And in retaliation, and for want of power, Regina had Snow's father killed, and now wants Snow to die. Because Snow White had gotten Regina's love murdered, is what we learned. And so she's telling all of this to her magic mirror. Who is her magic mirror? None other than... Her magic mirror is this guy named Sidney Glass. And he's been in the show on and off. He's kind of the one that's been doing all the detective digging into Emma's past. But who is Mystery Boy? We don't know who Mystery Boy is. We don't know who dead Mystery Boy is that Regina loves so much that she would go through all of this trouble to get Snow White, like, killed. Magic Mirror is like, well, you need a huntsman to kill Snow White. I don't remember why, but we do it. We meet the huntsman. Who is the huntsman? Do you remember him? He looks like this in the Disney movie. We see him crying over a kill. He killed a deer with his bestie pet wolf, and he's crying over this deer. It's very sweet. So Regina asks the huntsman to kill Snow in exchange that she will outlaw the hunting of wolves because he loves wolves. So these two are on a walk, and she's very sad. She's like, without fail, all of my father's men have offered me condolences because he just died. You did not offer me condolences. You're also wearing your armor wrong. She sent you here to kill me. She's not as dumb as she looks. And so she hits him with a stick and she runs. And he chases her, and I think he might have passed out. I don't know. She gets far enough that she can start composing a letter. And he's like, why are you composing a letter? I'm about to kill you. And she's like, okay, I know I'm going to die anyway. Please give this to the queen. And he reads the letter. He's like, the hell is this? He reads it and he starts crying. He's got some good masculinity. I like this man's masculinity. He's a bit of a crier, and I respect it because I am too. And he decides not to kill Snow because the letter is so heartfelt, and she forgives Regina for all the evil that Regina is done by trying to kill her. And she also apologizes for, like, ? Getting her love killed? We don't know yet. And so he makes her a whistle so that if she ever whistles, she can always have aid. But Regina finds out that the huntsman didn't actually kill Snow because he gives her a fake heart instead of the real heart, just like in the Disney movie. And she rips his heart out because that's a thing in this show. Back in Storybrooke, guess who is waking up from the curse and starting to remember an old life? He remembers that he had a pet wolf, and he feels like he keeps seeing the wolf. So the side plot is Mary Margaret and Dr. Whale are like hooking up, and Mary Margaret's like, listen, I'm getting over David. I like David, but he went back to Catherine. But you, Emma, you like Graham. Like, it's really obvious that you like Graham. And Emma's like, no. She's like, you're putting up an emotional wall. This is what you do. You run away and you put up these walls. So Graham goes to the only person who might believe him, Henry. So Graham goes to Henry and he's like, Henry, am I in your book? And Henry's like, oh, duh, yeah, you're the hunter. You spared Snow White, but the queen took your heart so you could never feel again. And what's his problem is that he can't feel anything right now. And she put your heart in a vault. So now Graham's like, I have to go to Regina's vault and find my heart. So him and Emma see the wolf that leads them to Regina's vault. And her vault is like her father's tomb in the graveyard because he died. Emma's like, you're not going to find your heart. And Graham's like, please just trust me on this one. And so Regina catches them in the tomb and she's like, the hell are you doing? And Graham basically like breaks up like Regina and Emma because they're fighting because they both realize that they both like Graham. It's a whole thing. I don't even know. So Emma and Graham go back to the sheriff's station because she's upset. She's upset that Emma and Graham are seeing each other. Emma doesn't like Regina. Graham thinks Regina stole her heart. It's a whole issue. And they're talking and they have a heart to heart and these two start making out, and they're making out in the sheriff's station. And remember when he remembered things from the Enchanted Forest when he first kissed Emma? They start making out. He starts remembering everything, and he's like, I know I believe in the curse. But before he can say anything, guess who we see going into her vault? Because it's not just a tomb, it's an actual vault. She's gaslighting people, you have to remember. She takes out a heart and she crushes it. Guess who starts having a heart attack? And he's like, guess who falls on the floor of the sheriff's station and dies? Scottish Christian Grey. Oh my god. When this scene happened when I was 13, I was so sad. I was so horrified. I was watching it on this iPad and I was just like, so gross. Anyway, we end. She's sobbing her eyes out on the floor of the sheriff's station because Graham just died. Like, he, for all intents and purposes, just had a heart attack. God. Folks, it's like, what time is it? It's 2:22 p.m. I have a work meeting at 4:30, so hopefully we're almost halfway through. Season 1, Episode 8, Desperate Souls. So we zoom in on a very normal looking Rumpelstiltskin in the Enchanted Forest. So he doesn't look like a crocodile yet. He is spinning straw. So it turns out Rumple is living during the time of the Ogre Wars. So this is in the Enchanted Forest, kind of pre-Dark Curse, before he even has magic. This is a long time ago. So then the Duke is drafting children to fight in the war, and Rumple's son, Balefire, is fixing to get drafted. Where's Balefire? I'm just thinking about if I do season 2, how messed up this is going to be. Anyway, Balefire's fixing to get drafted. There's this evil sorcerer called the Dark One who is helping enforce this using evil magic, and he's controlled by a wavy knife. Watch this. Boy. So the Dark One is being controlled by the Duke, who's got this wavy knife. And whatever, back in Storybrooke. Graham has been dead for 2 weeks, and Gold comes up to Emma and he's like, hey, have you thought of taking the role over as sheriff? Because Graham's dead and no one else is as good as you. And Emma's like, yeah. Emma goes to put on the badge and Regina's like, ooh, that's not for you, girly pop. I actually appointed someone to take on the role as sheriff because I'm the mayor. I appointed Sydney Glass, the reporter. Sorry, Regina fires Emma. So that's an issue because Emma actually likes her job for once. And Gold shows up and he's like, hey, bestie, according to the town charter, you can run against Sydney for sheriff. It's an elected position. And we could enter our collab era and help you get sheriff. And so Emma agrees, but she's like, why would Gold help me? Because there's always something in it for Gold. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Rumple and Balefire, also called Bay, run away from the draft. But they get caught and this guard is like, hey, I know you ugly. You ran away during the last Ogre War, because there's been lots of Ogre Wars. We'll get to that later. And everyone else died, and you were labeled a coward because you ran away from the draft, and then your wife left you. This guard read normal-looking Rumpelstiltskin for filth. and everyone thinks you're a coward. So Rumple decides that he needs the dagger to control the Dark One so that he can get power and stop looking like a coward. Back in Storybrooke, Regina, remember she appointed Sydney, decides to start playing dirty. So she had Sydney write a story for the newspaper about how Emma gave birth to Henry when she was in jail. Henry kind of finds out that Gold and Emma are in their collab era, and Henry's like, you can't beat my mom. She's evil, especially with Gold. He's more evil than Regina is. And Emma's like, listen, I can't win unless I start playing dirty. So Emma goes to Regina. She's like, hey, bestie, that's actually libel and illegal. Where did you get those files saying that I gave birth to Henry in jail? Because nobody is supposed to know that. And Regina's like, take that up at the debate. Actually, there's a debate happening between the two sheriffs that are running. I was like, the hell? There's a debate. So these two are arguing. I think they're in Regina's office, and suddenly a bomb goes off, and the office is on fire. So Emma, like the hero she is, saves Regina from the fire, and everyone's like, Emma, you did such a good thing. Emma finds the Molotov cocktail thing from the fire. And the material belongs to Gold because she had noticed it earlier at his pawn shop. And she goes up to Gold and she's like, you set this bomb. And he's like, yeah, I set it to help you so that you look like the hero. You can't win unless you play dirty like her. So Rumple and Balefire set fire to the Duke's castle, and then they break in, because reasons. They find the dagger, and Rumple tries to control the Dark One, but the Dark One is like, hey, you can't do that because you're a coward. And your son, he's a bastard. He just reads him for filth again. Rumple's really going through it. So Rumple kills the Dark One, and with the Dark One's final breaths, he's like, being the Dark One is a burden. And by the way, you just killed me, so you're the next Dark One? And by the way, magic always comes with a price. So then Rumple becomes the Dark One. In parentheses, I wrote slay. Back in Storybrooke, we get to the debate, and Emma gets up there and she's like, listen, I've got a confession to make. The fire was a setup. Mr. Gold did it to make me look good. And we all let you think it was real so that I look like the hero. And everyone's like, good for you for standing up to Mr. Gold. So Gold is pissed. Remember, he's very powerful. These two manipulate everyone, but especially he's like the Peter Baelish of Once Upon a Time. You know what I mean? And she tries to be, but it's really him behind many, many things in this show. As it turns out, everyone loved Emma's honesty. Henry's like, you stood up to Mr. Gold. That's what a real hero does. And so Emma wins the sheriff position because she was honest. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Rumple looks like that now. He's gotten all scaly and evil. Anyway, he stops the draft, and Bay's like, but stop killing people unnecessarily. You can stop the draft without killing anyone. You get what I mean? He's corrupt on power is the whole thing. At the end of the episode, Emma is in the sheriff's office, and Gold strolls in with his cane, and he's like, so I actually knew you were going to out me to the town, and I knew all along that everyone would vote for you if you ratted me out. So that was my plan all along. Emma's like, there's no way you could have planned that. And he's like, listen, everyone's afraid of Regina, but they're more afraid of me. So now you really look like a hero, now that you stood up to me. And he's like, oh, by the way, you actually still owe me that favor. It's a good thing you're sheriff now. Remember the favor from Cinderella? So Gold had this whole master plan to get Emma to be sheriff so that when he needed her favor, Emma would have the power to give him whatever he wanted. How we doing? Did you get a snack? Are you listening to this like a podcast? I hope so, because God, it is complicated. I hope you got this far, because we're not even halfway. Season 1, Episode 9, True North. So we open up, and Henry is hanging out at a store, and he meets this girl named Ava, and I loved this episode. Can you see her? Hold on. Yeah, you can see her. Yeah, you got it. I love this episode because her name was Ava, and my name's Ava, so that's cool. And her brother Nicholas, and they're hanging out, but the guy running the store is like, hey, Henry, why'd you steal from me? Also, the guy running the store is one of the dwarves. I don't remember which one, but you get the idea. He's like, hey, bestie, why'd you steal from me? And he's like, I didn't steal anything. What the hell? Turns out they were setting him up. And, of course, the sheriff has to be called because she's the sheriff now. And she's like, why are you kids, framing my son? She finds out the kids are orphans and pretty much live in a basement, but Emma doesn't want to report them to social services because they would be put in the foster system. And Emma was in the foster system growing up, and she knows the foster system is corrupt and awful, and she was in it for 16 years, and she doesn't want the same thing for these kids. And she also doesn't want them to be separated, because that's what happens, true stories, to people in foster care, is that there's not enough social workers and resources in foster families for it not to be corrupt. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic, but like that's an actual real issue. So Emma's like, okay, listen, your birth father has to be in Storybrooke because everyone's in freaking Storybrooke. So I'm going to find him. So she goes to the document place to look for their birth certificates, but who had pulled their birth certificates earlier that day? Regina. Regina has contacted social services who are going to separate the kids. Bestie evil queen. Guess who Ava and Nicholas are in the Enchanted Forest? They are none other than Hansel and Gretel. So Hansel and Gretel's father give them a compass so they don't get lost. And they're like looking for wood. Also, I didn't put their father down, but just imagine they have a father. Some of these like fathers and mothers, like his mother not on here, sorry. They get the wood, they come back, and their father is gone. And they're like, Dad, where are you? You know who finds them instead? The evil queen. In this episode, she's wearing an awful hat. I hate this hat so much, and I'm putting up a picture because it's awful. Anyway, she's wearing an awful hat, and she's like, your father left you. I'll find your father if you actually go steal this satchel from the blind witch who lives in this candy house. By the way, you can't eat anything. We know the story of Hansel and Gretel. So she puts them up to go into the witch's house. Where's the witch? I put her up on here earlier by accident. They go into the candy house to get the satchel, but Hansel eats some candy, so naturally the witch wakes up and tries to eat them. Back in Storybrooke, Henry is like, you know how you're looking for Ava and Nicholas's dad? Who's my dad? And Emma's like, oh, yeah, your dad, he was a fireman. And I got in some trouble and I ended up in jail. And I found out that he had died in a fire, Henry. Like, he was a hero. That gives Emma an idea. It turns out Ava has a compass from her mom or dad. I don't remember which one. So we've got this compass. So we've got a lead on their dad. And so who do we go when we need information? Mr. Gold. He knows all about artifacts and compasses. She's like, whose compass is this? Turns out Mr. Gold had sold it to Ava and Nicholas's parents. He's like, I've actually got the name on the card right here. And he picks up the card. And he's like, this is the name. Go ahead. And the camera pans over. And as Emma's leaving, we see that the card is blank. Like, Mr. Gold really, we're getting the sense that he knows a lot more about, like, the curse and everything. Because he just brought up their parents' name just out of his head. You know what I mean? So still, though, the name is correct, and Emma finds the dad who's like, I'm not taking these kids. Let's pretend their dad is Ryan. Like, Ryan, not actually the dad. It's important to me that you know that, but I'm just running out of, like, characters and things. Dad's like, I'm not taking the kids. Emma's like, listen, they need you. I gave up my son. I don't want anyone else to give up their kids. It's not a good way to live, in her opinion. Sorry. This show got some flack for being, like, anti-adoption. Sorry, I can't speak. Which is addressed in later seasons, but for now, she really doesn't want anyone to give up their kids. Just remember, it's fiction. So Emma talks to Mary Margaret, and they're talking, and she's like, Henry's dad wasn't an actual hero. He was not a fireman. I can't tell him who his real dad is. Like, it would just crush him. He's not a good guy. And Mary Margaret's like, so you lied? And Emma's like, I did it for his own good. Put a pin in that. Well, so Gretel outsmarts the witch back in the Enchanted Forest, puts her in the oven. You know how it goes. They run back to the evil queen, and what was in that satchel but a magic apple? Whatever. Regina's like, so actually your father abandoned you. Come live with me in my evil little castle. And they're like, no, we want our father back. You kind of suck. So the evil queen traps them. Turns out Regina had captured the father in the first place. She asked the father, I offered your children everything and they refused me for you. Why is that? And he says, because we're a family and family always finds one another. And this is what I mean when I say season 1 is the best, because they had all of these running themes about family and love and finding each other. Oh my God, season 1 is such good television. So Emma has to take the kids to Boston because the dad won't take them. But remember, nobody can leave Storybrooke. It is in Henry's law. So of course, on the town line, Emma's car stalls, and she calls the tow truck repairman. But guess who the tow truck repairman is? It's their father. So turns out Emma had stalled the car on purpose to get them together, and she's like, I just need you to see the kids just one time, and you can just decide what you want. And so the dad decides to keep them. Emma is the only stranger in this town for years, but at the end of the episode, someone rides up on a motorcycle and he's like, any place to get a room around here? It's a new stranger. And both Emma and Henry, and kind of everyone, are like, 2 new people in this town in like 3 months or so? What the hell is that about? There we go, he filled the perfect spot on the board. Whew, okay, we open. Handsome stranger on the motorcycle has a mysterious box. Handsome stranger won't tell Henry what's in the box. Meanwhile, there's a storm brewing. It's important to me that you know that. Meanwhile, Mary Margaret has been going to Granny's diner every day at 7:15, and she always happens upon David, who's getting coffee for him and Catherine at 7:15 in the morning. Mary Margaret's kind of stalking him. Emma kind of confronts her, and she's like, love is the worst. I wish there was magic to fix it. Okay, back in the Enchanted Forest, Snow White, our bestie, is on the run from the evil queen. She meets Ruby, who's Little Red Riding Hood. Ruby tells her that Prince Charming and Abigail are going to get married in 2 days' time. And she's like, love is the worst. If only there was magic to fix it. If only there was a way to get him out of my head. And Ruby's like, oh, okay. And she's like, what? What's going on? Red's like, there's a man who can do what you want. Snow's like, tell me right now. Red's like, okay. Enter this motherfucker right here. So this is their first meeting. Remember, the timeline's messed up. So they already met. They're not married yet. Remember, Emma's not born yet. The curse isn't even a thing yet. But just remember, it's a little messed up. I believe in you. You guys are very smart. You can keep up. Oh, I feel like I got a teacher. Oh my God. This is what I'm doing with my English major. Oh my God. I'm going to be a teacher. No, I can't be a teacher. No. Rumple, in all his creepy crocodileness, gives her a potion to forget about Prince Charming forever in exchange for, I think, a strand of her hair. Or maybe the strand comes in later. Eventually, the strand comes in eventually. So Prince Charming, meanwhile, sent a note to Snow, like, come to the castle before I'm married and we can run away together. So she's like, I don't need this potion. I need to go to the castle. Back in Storybrooke, Mary Margaret and Catherine literally run into each other in the store, and Catherine drops a pregnancy test. And Mary Margaret's like, oh, congratulations. And Catherine's like, thank you. Anyway, Mary Margaret finds a dove trapped in a wire and brings it to the animal shelter where David works. The doctor is like, she'll be fine, but she might lose her flock forever. She can stay here, but she won't be happy. Mary Margaret's like, well, I'll get her back to her flock. And David's like, no, there's a storm coming. You can't go out there. There's a storm. Meanwhile, my hand hurts. Regina has asked Emma to figure out who this man is because she doesn't like when there's new people in the town. And Emma knows this because he's taken a particular interest in the one thing they have in common, which is Henry. So Snow in the Enchanted Forest goes to the castle, and who captures her? Wait. I think I wrote Midas, but I think it's actually King George that captures her. I'm pretty sure it's him. Who's her cellmate? None other than Grumpy the Dwarf. So her cellmate is Grumpy the Dwarf of the 7 dwarves. And they're talking, and he's got a sob story. We'll get to it later. It's relevant later, not in this episode. But there's actually 8 dwarves, including Stealthy, one of their besties. They all manage to break out of King George's cell, but Stealthy dies in the attempt. R.I.P. Stealthy. Because he's not in this Walt Disney version, so he can't be Once Upon a Time. Basically, the king, so she goes back, but the king catches her again. He's like, hey, Snow, you're going to go in there and break Charming's heart so that he marries Abigail, because I need him to marry Abigail. Or else I will kill him and make him a martyr. I don't know why. I don't know why. I guess them marrying is more important than him being dead, but he could be dead and it wouldn't really make a difference. It doesn't make that much sense. Back in Storybrooke, Mary Margaret is trying to catch the dove up to its flock, but the storm comes in and she gets spooked and she falls over a cliff. like fully like a ravine. And she's dangling by her fingertips. I can't make this up. But who saves her? David does. David has been following her. He saves her. We love him. Icon legend. The moment the storm is raging and they find this abandoned cottage in the woods that'll come into play later. She's like, listen, I have feelings for you, but you chose Catherine instead of me. So, like, why do you think I'm at Granny's every day at 7:15? He's like, why do you think I'm at Granny's every day at 7:15? Mary Margaret and David reunite the dove with its flock, but now they're like, we don't know if Catherine's pregnant. Remember the pregnancy test? We have to forget about each other. So David goes home. Catherine's like, David, this is hard on us. Let's go see Dr. Hopper, work this out. It's not easy that you lost your memories, but I love you. And David's like, I have to agree. Like, hey everyone, my phone died. Where are Catherine and David at 7:15 the next morning? They're making coffee with each other. Meanwhile, Emma's like, hey, mysterious hot new man, what's in your mysterious bag that you're carrying around? Like, it's like a box. Because we want to know, like, the whole town wants to know, we don't know what's up with you. Who are you? And he's like, I'll tell you as long as you let me get you a drink sometime. And she's like, sure. So he's like, okay. And it's a typewriter. He opens it and it's a typewriter. He's like, I'm a writer. I'm back in Storybrooke writing. And she's like, so you've been here before? And he's like, that's enough for now. Back in the enchanted forest, Snow is crying in the woods, and who comforts her? The now 7 dwarves. She's like, okay, let me take this potion to forget Prince Charming. Like, this is too painful. I just broke his heart because it was I was manipulated into breaking his heart. It's pretty much the vibe that we get. And they're like, no. They're like, this pain, you can't erase it. It's a part of you now. And also, you're not alone anymore. There's now 7 dwarves that are gonna be your besties. Like, you don't need to, like, rip out your own love for, James David. And she's like, you're right. Then later, Grumpy comes into the dwarf's cottage to tell Snow that Charming called off the wedding. And he's like, hey, bestie, Charming just called off the wedding to Abigail. And she's like, who's that? And we zoom in, and the bottle, like the potion is empty on her bedside table. So she took the potion and now doesn't know who he is. God. Anyway, back in Storybrooke, Mary Margaret and David try to stay away from each other, so much so that Mary Margaret goes to Granny's at 7:45, and guess who's there? David. They're like, guess we can't stay away from each other. And then they kiss. So that's good. But Regina sees it because Regina sees everything. Season 1, episode 11, Fruit of the Poisonous Tree. So Emma and Henry are at their castle, and Henry hides the book, like, under the castle, but Regina bulldozes the castle because it's dangerous, and she doesn't like things that Emma and Henry have together. She's like, no, the castle's dangerous. It's gone. But then the book is gone too, so we think that Regina might have the book. Regina got Sydney fired from the paper because I'm pretty sure he ended up backing Emma for sheriff anyway. So now Sydney allegedly wants to team up with Emma to expose Regina because Sydney thinks that Regina is stealing money to build a new mansion, I think is the vibe. Meanwhile, Mary Margaret and David start having an affair behind Catherine and everyone's back. So very nice of them as Snow White and Prince Charming. Back in the Enchanted Forest, this episode is just so racist. It's just so racist. So Sydney, the only black guy in the cast, is the genie. You know Robin Williams? You know him? Sydney's the genie from Agrabah because so Sydney's the genie. And Snow White's dad, see, this is her dad, finds the lamp that Sydney's in, like rubs it, and like frees the genie from his slavery. Not a good look. So Sydney's now free. What's his name? I think his name's just the genie. The king is Snow White's father, and he takes the genie to live in the castle with his, like, second wife and his daughter. And the genie, Sydney, falls in love with Regina, who is not quite yet the evil queen. The genie, because he's in love with Regina, gives Regina a beautiful mirror and tells her that she is the fairest in all the land. Meanwhile, the king catches on to, like, them liking each other because she kind of likes him back because he reads her diary. So that's not good. That's abuse and, like, weird. Back in Storybrooke, Emma has planted a bug in Regina's office because remember, these two are working together to try and get dirt on her. They think they're onto her, but suddenly the brakes in her car stop working and they get into another car crash. And we think that Regina has tampered with the brakes. Gold shows up in the woods. Oh, because they were on their way because they thought that Regina had a business transaction with someone for this new mansion that she stole money to build. But Gold is in the woods and he's like, no, that transaction with me, she's just buying land in the woods. And Emma and Sydney are like, that's sus. They steal files, that's how they find out about the mansion. I'm getting this out of order, but you get the idea. It's not that important. The king back in the Enchanted Forest, the king locks Regina in her chambers, and Regina's dad asks the genie to free her by bringing her a box of things to free her. And what is in the box, they open it to see poisonous snakes from Agrabah, where the genie's from. So Regina is about to kill herself with the snakes, but the genie is like, no. What if we killed the king? Then we could be together forever. So the genie sneaks the snakes into the king's bed, killing him. And the genie's like, we're free. But the palace guards found the snake. No, it was from Agrabah. So they know that the genie was the one that killed the king. The genie's like, hold on, bestie, you framed me. You never loved me in the first place, you're just using me. And Regina's like, it sucks, that's rough. I'm the evil queen now, I guess. But the genie is like, no, I want to be with you forever. So he's got one wish left in his lamp, and so he wishes to be with Regina forever. And where does that get him stuck? In the mirror. And now he is mirror on the wall. There you have it, folks. So then, back in Storybrooke, at the council meeting, because there's a lot of those, Emma and Sydney try and expose Regina for stealing $50,000 to build a second home, and Regina pulls the Uno reverse card, because she's like, yeah, that's a house I'm building, you're right, a playhouse for children, because the one that Henry was going to was too dangerous for all the children. And Regina's like, by the way, I know you broke into my house to steal those files, because they did that. That's illegal. You don't get to see my son anymore, which is like fair. Emma messed that one up. Sydney was the one. Sydney and Gold, lots of people have been telling her to play dirty, and she fell for it. And this is what happens. She doesn't get to see Henry anymore. Meanwhile, who ended up stealing the book? Remember, the book was stolen at the beginning of the episode. August stole the book and was using it to like add pages to it and kind of fix the book up. We'll get to that later. At the end of the episode, we find out that Regina had kind of orchestrated all of this to pull Emma down to her level, and these two were working together the entire time to make Emma seem like the bad guy. It's kind of genius. Like, it kind of is, to like make her like, she is not as goody two-shoes as these two. She is her own girl boss, and she's not always gonna be right and good. Not that these two are. This next episode is so good. All right, girlies. All right, girly pops. Season 1, episode 12, Skin Deep. The Akatar girlies, the Sarah J. Maas girlies are going to eat this one up. And you know what? I ate it up too. It's such a good episode. We enter. There's an ogre war. Which one? Whose kingdom is it? We don't know. But the ogre war is going on in Princess Belle's kingdom. She's beautiful, and she also has a father. Everyone has a father in these. Only one, though. You can't have a father and a mother. That's too much to ask for. This is her father. His picture's really dark, so I don't even know if you can see that. So, we meet Princess Belle and her court. Her dad, we also meet Gaston. That's how she says it, because she's French. Actually, she's Australian. She's randomly Australian. No one else is, but she's adorable, and I love her. They are fighting the ogre war. She's about to marry Gaston. I forgot to print out his picture. You've seen the Disney movie. You know what he looks like. They need help, so who do we ask? We ask Rumplestiltskin for help because he's our helper. It's never a good idea, except for in this case, it's kind of a good idea. He comes, he agrees to help their kingdom defeat the ogres, but for a price. He asks for Belle to come with him and be his price. It's a little sus. You see why the Akatar girlies like this one. So he asks for Belle, and they're like, nah, she's engaged to Gaston. He's like, well, I'm not going to marry her. I need help. Like, I need a maid. So she's like, okay, I need to protect my kingdom. I will go with you. That was so bad. And he's like, no, you can't. You beast. You can't go with this beast. Write that down. But Rumpelstiltskin always gets what he wants, and Belle, who doesn't have a lot of power, she doesn't really want to marry Gaston anyway, saves her kingdom by going with him. Back in Storybrooke, Gold, this guy, they're the same guy, but you know what I mean. Gold has loaned Mo French, who is Belle's father, money, but Mo has not paid it back, so Gold takes Mr. French's van like the little bitch he is. Meanwhile, someone broke into Gold's house and robbed something, and Gold tells Emma, because she's the sheriff, that he thinks it's Mo French getting like revenge because his van just got stolen by Gold. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Belle is Rumpel's like maid thing, moment. So she's learning how to cook. She's cleaning for him. It's not the girl boss feminist tale that we love, but we're getting there. Well, there's one scene where she's like serving him and she drops the tray full of tea and one of the cups chips. And she's like, "No, it's chipped." And he's like, "Well, it's just a cup." Anyway, remember that. We got a chipped cup going on. Are you putting the pieces together? I think you are. She's not just going to be a victim. She is constantly kind of standing up to him. We see her like pulling the drapes to get some light in. She's always like, why are you so mean? Why are you so mean to everyone? She really calls him out. We get this scene of her trying to like let light into the room, opening the big drapes, and she falls and he catches her in his arms and she's like, oh, and they like make eyes at each other. And another scene, she's reading him for filth and she's like, why did you want me here? I think you're lonely. And you're ugly, that's why you cover up all your mirrors, because you think you're ugly. And he like is ugly, like look at him, he's pretty ugly. He actually does open up about losing his son, because I guess this is the time we find out. We have never seen him lose Balefire, but apparently he does at some point. He's like, yeah, I lost my son. Meanwhile, Gaston, he should go right there, but I don't have him, comes back to get her. He's like, you beast, but Rumpel turns him into a rose and gives him to Belle, so that's funny. Then he makes her a deal, because this man loves deals. And he's like, if you go to town to get some straw, because he spins straw into gold, and you come back, I'll tell you the story of how I lost my son. And she's like, you're letting me go? Like, how do you know I'll come back? And he's like, I don't. Belle is on her way to town, because she's going to take this man's deal, because she's a goodie, she's a good one. She's one of the good guys. She's always seeing good in people, especially this slimy man. And so she's on her way to town, and guess who she runs across but the evil queen, because she's on the queen's road. The queen's like, well, let me walk with you for a while, because like I'm in my carriage, I want to walk with you. She's like, so who are you running from? Your employer? Your lover? And Belle's like, oh, and she's like, your employer and your lover. Interesting, do you love him? Belle's like, I think I might. Yeah. I think I might, but something evil has taken root in him. He's so evil, and I don't know why. And the queen, and by the way, Belle doesn't know Regina's the queen. I don't know where her kingdom is, but it's like not close, apparently. Regina's like, well, he might be under a curse, and you know what breaks every curse? True love's kiss. And Belle's like, interesting. So Belle goes rushing back, and he's like, why did you come back? And she's like, well, and she kisses him, and they kiss, and it's very cute, and his skin starts to turn normal looking, and she's like, I knew it. She was right. Every curse can be broken. And he's like, who told you that? So he runs away from the kiss. He rips down the curtain covering the mirror, because remember, the mirrors are covered, and he starts yelling at the mirror, like, you turned her against me. You did this. And she's like, who are you talking to? He's like, I'm talking to the queen, your best friend, the queen. And then he turns to Belle. He's like, I knew you could never care for me because no one can ever love me. I'm a beast. He goes on this rampage and he breaks everything in the room except for that chipped cup. He's got some anger issues. Like, I never said this was healthy. I just love her a lot. Back in Storybrooke, Gold has kidnapped Mo French and he brings him to that cabin in the woods that these two were at in the last episode. And he beats him up. He tortures him. And he's like, she's gone. You're her father. Where is she? And thank God Emma stops that shit and arrests Gold. There's a subplot. This is off side note. Subplot. There's a subplot about it being Valentine's Day. And Homeboy has two cards, one for Mary Margaret and one for Catherine. And accidentally gives Mary Margaret Catherine's card. It's like a whole thing, and then they're like, maybe we shouldn't be together. They go back and forth a lot. I mean, it's an affair. Like, storybook characters aside, like, that's fully an affair. Okay, back in the Enchanted Forest, Rumple kicks Belle out. She calls him out. She's like, you could have had happiness if you'd only believed that someone loved you. Because she does love him. She sees the light in him. Good for her. She's better off on her own. I said it first. She calls him a coward. Remember who else called him a coward? Like, literally everyone ever before he became the Dark One. This kind of symbolizes she sees him as the man he is, and he's a bit of a coward. Back in Storybrooke, Regina comes to visit Gold in jail, because remember, he got arrested for torturing a man. Happens. And he's like, I know you have it. You have what I want. And she's like, yeah, I put Mo up to stealing it. She's like, yeah, I'll give it to you if you answer one question. What's your name? And he goes, Mr. Gold. She goes, no, your real name. What's his real name? He says Rumplestiltskin. And guess what she gives him? That chipped cup. So we have just confirmed that Homeboy, he's alluded to it, but it's never been confirmed that he does remember the curse. And not only the curse, he remembers his lost love. In the Enchanted Forest, Regina visits Rumple after he kicked Belle out. She's like, oh, tragedy struck. Like, I know where your Belle is. After she got home, her fiancé had gone missing, Gaston. Nobody wanted her because of her association with you, the monster her father shunned her, and eventually she died. Rumple's like, you're lying, and the Queen's like, why would I lie? Back in Storybrooke, we see homegirl, Miss Regina, visit the psychiatric ward, because that's something they have in the basement of the hospital, the psychiatric ward where she locks people up that she doesn't like. Who is in the psychiatric ward but Miss Belle? And that's the end of the episode. Okay, I told you, it's such a good episode. It's so good. And you know what? The actor who plays Rumple says it's the best 43 minutes of television he's ever done in his life. So you know what? Who could ever learn to love a beast? Apparently, Miss Australian Belle learned to love a beast. All right, season 1, episode 13, what happened to Frederick? So remember when Charming called off the wedding to Abigail? So he goes on the run from literally everyone in this whole situation because he just called off the wedding that he was engaged to. Abigail catches him and she's like, I know you love Snow White. Like, it's kind of obvious, bestie. I'm going to help you escape because I don't want to marry you either. And he's like, okay. Back in Storybrooke, we find out that Catherine applied to law school. Good for her, but that means she has to move to Boston. Meanwhile, these two agreed to tell Catherine that he was cheating and they were having an affair. But David kind of cowards backs out of it, and he's like, that's great, we should break up, but doesn't tell her about the affair. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Abigail needs help. She's in love with someone named Frederick. I need to get Frederick. They love each other. See, he's one of the princes I've been telling you about. So Abigail's in love with Frederick, this man right here. Different from this man, different from this man. They all just represent a different random prince from one of the kingdoms that never come back into play again. So just thought that was important. Turns out Frederick was one day in battle defending her and her father, but her father, who is King Midas, accidentally turned him into gold during this battle. They have to go to Lake Nostos to find this healing water. Or she wants him to, but it's guarded by a monster. And Charming is like, I'll do it. I'll go. You just let me go. You got me out of this whole arrangement. Let me do something for you, my best queen girl. Back in Storybrooke, remember how August stole the book? We see him rebinding it, adding more pages again. Meanwhile, Catherine goes to Regina because Catherine's kind of she doesn't have a lot of friends, and Regina pretends to be her friend because remember, she doesn't want these two together. Catherine's like, David broke up with me. Regina's like, damn, Mary Margaret just couldn't stay away. And Catherine's like, what? This doesn't have anything to do with Mary Margaret. And Regina's like, oh, you didn't know. They were having an affair. I saw them kiss. I thought they told you. Catherine goes, no, what? So Catherine, in a rage, storms up to Mary Margaret's school, because remember, she's a teacher, slaps her and yells at her in front of the students. She's like, he lied, and you all lied to me. You two deserve each other, you two liars. Honestly, fair. Take away the storybook situation. I don't blame her. Sorry. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Charming goes to the lake. The monster to defeat is a beautiful woman. And he's like, oh, it's a siren, like a mermaid, but like a siren. The siren, to like seduce him, I guess, takes the appearance of Snow White, tries to kill him, but he kills the siren, not Snow. Charming comes back with the water, and they free Frederick, and Charming leaves to find Snow White, because now they're together with their true love, and now he needs to go to his true love. It's a whole thing. Back in Storybrooke, remember how August was like, Emma, let me take you out for a drink. Oh, by the way, his name's August. Did I ever tell you guys that? That's his name. His name is August. He's an icon. He's a legend. He takes Emma for a drink at the watering hole at the town well. Remember that. Remember that. It's not a normal booze, beer drink. This well's got some like legends to it. And she's like, no, that's a lie. He's like, listen, I always tell the truth. There is legend with this well. This well, they say that if you drink water from this well, something lost will be returned to you. It's a wishing well, it's magic. And she's like, haha, just like Henry. Like Mary Margaret, because this whole secret got out, is like the town whore. Everyone hates her, which I guess like misogyny, because he did like the same, he cheated. She was just the other woman. Mary Margaret is like, well, you lied to me. You told her you'd tell her about the affair and you didn't. And so Mary Margaret breaks up with him. Like, we have to stop. You lied to me, you lied to Catherine, I lied to Catherine too. None of us are great people right now. Meanwhile, what appears under the tire of Emma's yellow bug car? The book with new pages. Catherine goes to Regina and she's like, you know what? David never looked at me the way he looks at Mary Margaret. She realizes that she's never been in true love, and she's going to go to Boston for grad school, to find true love. But what is our rule? What is Henry's rule? No one ever leaves Storybrooke. And what happens? Catherine, on the town line, gets into a car wreck and goes missing. Also, she had left David a letter explaining that she was going to go to Boston, but Regina stole it and burned it. So nobody knows where Catherine went. Everyone thinks Catherine just like up and left them. Okay, next episode. My work meeting's in 15 minutes. No. Episode 14, Dreamy. Remember when I said Grumpy had a sad backstory? This is it. Okay, so we meet Fairy Nova, who works with all the other fairies. Blue Fairy is like the top girly. But she works with the other fairies. She wants to be a fairy godmother, but she's not very good at her job, so she's stuck delivering fairy dust because the dwarves work in the mines and they mine fairy dust. We meet Dreamy, who was hatched from an egg that was actually sprinkled with fairy dust from Nova's, like, dust that she dropped because she's bad at her job. And he wakes up and he's like, who's the woman I saw? And they're like, woman, you are a dwarf and you are here to work in the mines. We all got our dwarf names: Bashful, Sleepy, Stealthy, and you are Dreamy. Dreamy and Nova meet in the mines and they start to fall in love. Back in Storybrooke, the nuns of Storybrooke, remember the fairies or the nuns, are helping, they need help selling candles for their Miners' Day tradition. Mary Margaret is like the volunteer getting sign-up sheets, but nobody likes her because she's the town harlot. Meanwhile, Leroy, grumpy, meets Astrid, who is Nova, who is a nun. He helps her fix the light for Miners' Day, which is a festival that they do every year. You don't care. She keeps messing things up because she's bad at her job. She blew the stipend on helium by accident, so now they can't pay rent. And who do they pay rent to? Mr. Gold. Because remember, everybody pays rent to Mr. Gold. They have to sell 1,000 candles in order to pay their rent to Mr. Gold, or else the nuns have to leave town. This is always happens bad. So Leroy, because he's kind of in love with Astrid, vows that he's going to help them sell these candles. Meanwhile, Emma, as the sheriff, finds out that Catherine is missing because they find her car broke down. Sydney is helping her, but remember, he's just double-crossing her by working with Regina. He gets Catherine's phone records, which make David look like a suspect. These phone records, they could have been like, we don't know, because he is not a good guy. He's a bad guy. Back in the Enchanted Forest, the dwarves are in a tavern, and Dreamy is like, listen, I'm not having a good time. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Belle shows up randomly. She's randomly there, and she's like, you're in love. Of course you can't eat. You can't sleep. You love someone. Enjoy it because it won't last forever. She convinces Dreamy to go see the fireflies with Nova, and they both want to see the world, so they decide to run off together. But who catches wind of this? The Blue Fairy, who's Nova's boss, and then the Dwarf boss, who's not that relevant. And they're like, you can't run away together because Nova will lose her wings. So Dreamy breaks Nova's heart going back to the mines. He's heartbroken. He breaks his axe, and his next axe gives him the name Grumpy, and that's how he becomes Grumpy. Back in Storybrooke, Leroy tells Astrid he sold all the candles to make her feel better, but that's not the truth because he lied. So what does he do? He goes to the lights that he fixed earlier in the episode, and he takes an axe to it and breaks them, causing a town-wide power outage so that everybody has to buy the candles. And it works, and they sell a lot of candles. And for some reason, they start to forgive Mary Margaret for being in an affair, even though David didn't face any consequences town-wide for being in an affair. So misogyny, I guess. So that's good. Happy ending, right? Wrong. Emma is forced to take David in because those police records made him look like a suspect in Catherine's disappearance. Season 1, Episode 5, Red-Handed. So Emma goes up to David, basically tells him, hey buddy, this looks like a crime, you're gonna want to get a lawyer. Meanwhile, Ruby, who works at Granny's diner, is getting sick of working at the diner. Her and Granny get into a fight because Ruby wants to travel the world, so she quits the diner. Mary Margaret and Emma take her in because she doesn't have a plan. In the Enchanted Forest, Little Red Riding Hood is in love with this boy, Peter. We need one of our guys. Anyway, she's in love with this guy named Peter. He's not a prince, but he might as well be. She wants to run away with Peter, but there's a wolf killing everyone in their town, and Granny doesn't approve because she needs to keep Red safe. Granny makes her stay in the house and wear her red cape while the huntsmen go kill the wolf. One day, Ruby finds Snow White, who's on the run from the queen, hiding in their chicken coop shed. She goes by the name Mary because she doesn't want to put Red in trouble. They find out that all the huntsmen who went to kill the wolf are dead. We learn that Granny's father and brothers were killed by a similar wolf years ago, and it also bit her. So Snow and Ruby decide that they're going to go kill the wolf. They find it and see that the wolf's footprints transform into paws. To boots. Wait, from paws. They see that the wolf's footprints transform from paws into boots. This thing is a werewolf, and it goes right to the window of Granny and Red's cottage, right where Peter always comes in the window. They think the wolf is Peter, so they know Red has to talk to him before it gets dark, and he turns into a wolf. Snow takes the red cloak to pretend to be Red. Where is she? So that Granny isn't suspicious, so that Red can go find Peter. Red goes to find Peter, and they chain him to a tree so that he can't kill anyone till the full moon is over. Back in Storybrooke, Mary Margaret goes to search for Catherine in the woods, but instead finds David looking for Catherine, and he's in some sort of trance. In Storybrooke, remember that. Meanwhile, Emma gives Ruby a job as her assistant, and Ruby helps her find David because she can hear him, weirdly, and they find him passed out. He wakes up, he has no memory of what happened in the woods talking to Mary Margaret. Turns out this trance-like thing is a side effect from his time in a coma. So Emma asks Ruby to go to the toll bridge because she's got these weird senses and stuff like that. She's really helpful as an assistant. And to see if David has been there while he was in a trance. So she starts searching, and this scene scarred me as a child because she digs up a box, she opens it, and she screams bloody murder. It's really scary, and she did a really good job acting it. But they think it's Catherine's heart because there's a human heart inside the box. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Granny finds Snow in the bed instead of Red. Granny reveals that Red is the wolf, and that red cape keeps her from killing people and turning into a wolf. So they rush to save Peter because he's about to be killed by Red, but we get this awful scene of Peter dead, he's dead, he gets eaten by Wolf Red. And it's so sad because they put the cloak on her, it's magic, and it keeps her from, it transforms her back into a girl, and she killed Peter, and it's so sad because she's crying. Meanwhile, Ruby goes back to the diner because she doesn't want to be the sheriff's assistant anymore. She doesn't want to be finding hearts. She wants to live like Granny and give people food and a place to stay, and not she says, I don't want a good day at work to be ruining someone's life, even if it is, David the maybe murderer or someone the maybe murderer. She doesn't want that. So then Emma breaks the news to Mary Margaret and David that Mary Margaret's fingerprints were found on the box. My work meeting just got canceled, so if that gives you context to how long I've been filming this, it's been a long time. Season 1, Episode 16, Heart of Darkness. So Emma is forced to arrest Mary Margaret. She's like, please just cooperate, because if Regina fires me for favoring you, she'll bring in someone who's going to put you away for good. She's going to convict you. I'm the sheriff, so I can kind of help you out here, right? Back in the Enchanted Forest, remember when Snow White took that potion to make her forget David? Yeah, we're back on that storyline. Get ready, because she's mean now. Like, she's bullying. She doesn't like birds anymore. She doesn't sing anymore. She's not having a good time. And the dwarves are like, the hell are you doing? Why are you being so mean? And so the dwarves and Jiminy Cricket stage an intervention and sit her down. And they're like, you're not being nice to your friends. And she's like, listen, the reason why I'm angry isn't the potion. It's the fact that I'm here instead of the castle with my father being a princess, because you know why? The queen killed my father. And so we get into a bit of trauma, don't we? And Jiminy's like, listen, your anger towards the queen is valid, but don't take it out on your friends. Which is a lesson we should all keep in mind. But Snow is like, you're right. I should be taking it out on the queen instead. So Snow White decides to go kill the queen. Back in Storybrooke, Emma and Regina interrogate Mary Margaret. Turns out the box that the heart was found in was Mary Margaret's jewelry box. Emma goes back to the apartment to look for signs of a break-in because she's convinced someone framed Mary Margaret, because Mary Margaret is kind. She's like Snow White of Storybrooke. She can't kill someone. She finds a hunting knife near Mary Margaret's bed. It's turning into a game of Clue, and it's not looking good for our bestie Mary. So Emma's like, Mary Margaret, you should hire a lawyer. And Gold randomly shows up because he's good at that. And he's like, I'm a lawyer. And she's like, not you. You suck. And Mary Margaret's like, hold on, I might do this. What's your price? And Gold's like, let's just say I'm very invested in your future. Meanwhile, August approaches Henry, who's upset about Mary Margaret, his teacher, being framed for murder. And he's like, listen, everything's going to be all right. Just look for the answers in your book. And Henry's like, what do you know about the book? And August is like, well, it's all real, isn't it? Henry's like, nobody believes me. And August is like, listen, I believe you. I'm here to help Emma believe. So now we have 4 people in Storybrooke believing that these stories are real. Whether or not it's for an ulterior motive, we don't know that yet. Henry's only 10. He doesn't even know what an ulterior motive is, but you get the idea. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Snow White starts torturing a guard to find out that Regina is on her way to the Summer Palace. Grumpy stops her and insists on taking her back to Rumplestiltskin to get her fixed, because remember, she's mean now. And they go to Rumple, and he's like, well, of course she's not herself. I took away love. Love is the most powerful magic of them all. So powerful that you cannot bottle it. And Snow's like, okay, we're past that. Can you help me kill the queen? And Rumpelstiltskin's like, yeah, I can help you kill the queen. He gives her a bow and arrow, and she's like, what's your price for this bow and arrow that's going to help me kill the queen? And he's like, let's just say I'm very invested in your future. Meanwhile, Prince Charming is going crazy to find her. He finds the guard, and the guard is like, she's bloodthirsty, she's crazy, she's on her way to kill the queen. And Prince Charming's like, she can't kill the queen, she's Snow White. So he goes to Rumple, and in exchange for his cloak that he wears around a lot of the time, he basically finds out that Snow, where is she? Snow can be saved by the kiss of true love, as always. And Rumple's like, okay, sounds good, good luck. By the way, if she kills the queen, she'll become as evil as the life that she takes. So she will become as evil as the queen. We don't want that. Meanwhile, in Storybrooke, David thinks that he killed Catherine during one of his blackouts that are happening, because of his coma. And with Archie's help, he's trying to remember that last phone call to Catherine that showed up in the phone bills, because that's why he was framed at first, because there's this phone call that Sydney provided the phone records for that he made, but he doesn't remember it. So with Archie's help, he goes into a trance trying to remember his trauma coma memories, and he sees Snow White about to go kill her. He sees Mary Margaret, who has long hair, she looks different, about to go kill her. He doesn't realize he's seeing memories of the Enchanted Forest. So now that's only more information, making them think that Mary Margaret killed Catherine. But in reality, it was them in the Enchanted Forest, her about to go kill Regina. Also, Henry finds a ring of Regina's skeleton keys that she keeps, and he's like, Emma, this is how she got into your apartment. These keys work. And none of them work until Emma tries one, and that key gets into the apartment so that there are no signs of a break-in. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Snow goes to fire the arrow at Regina. David intercepts it. You know how they do that? And he's like, I'd rather die than see you become evil. And, what happens next? She's like, no one's ever said that to me before. And he's like, well, it's true. I know you don't remember me. And they kiss, and guess what? She's good now. She remembers the spell's broken. They're in love again. It's all good. But right as that happens, remember King George? Remember how he broke off his engagement to Catherine? King George finds him to take him in and captures David. And what does she yell? I will find you. I will always find you. As he's getting kidnapped and captured, taken away. Back in Storybrooke, David goes to Mary Margaret. He's like, I saw you in my memories ready to kill someone. And she's like, I would never do that. 2 days ago, everyone thought you killed Catherine because of those phone records, and I stood by you, and now you're going back on me? And later, when Mary Margaret is making her jail bed in the morning, she finds a key, and what does that key open? Her jail cell. So now, Emma goes to Gold, and she's like, I know it was Regina, and I need your help because every time I go up against Regina, I've lost, except for the time that I worked with you. So then I need to save Mary Margaret, whatever it takes. We flash back to Mary Margaret's prison cell, and she's gone. Back in the Enchanted Forest, we see Rumple take that hair he got from Snow White and that hair he got from Prince Charming's cloak, and he bottles true love. Rock and roll, buckaroo. We're getting close. 5 more episodes to go. Season 1, Episode 17, Hat Trick. This is such another good episode. They're all so iconic this season. So, Mary Margaret is on the run from literally everyone, I guess. Emma, Gold, and Henry find that she's gone. They have till 8 a.m. to find her before her, meeting with the district attorney, which is, part of her trial, by the way. This guy is, the district attorney. He's, one of the judges or cops or something. It's not that relevant, but I thought I'd share. Emma goes in her little car to find her, undercover, because nobody can know she's missing, or else she would get convicted more. But she hits someone on the side of the road, and who does she hit? But James Buchanan Barnes, the Winter Soldier. Just kidding. He's not Bucky Barnes yet. This is pre-Bucky Barnes era. But Sebastian Stan, is that his name? He plays a guy named Jefferson. So she hits Jefferson with her car on accident. And she's like, girly bestie, I'm so sorry. Let me give you a ride back to your house. And they go back to his creepy looking mansion, and he serves her tea, and they're talking. And it's all cute and fun until she starts to pass out, and she realizes his limp is gone, and he'd been faking his limp, and he poisoned the tea. And so she passes out. Back in the Enchanted Forest, we meet Jefferson, who is playing hide and seek with his daughter, Grace. So they're all happy and cute, father and daughter, until the queen, this bitch, shows up at his house. She's like, do you know the queen? He's like, no, I don't know the queen. Let me just go get rid of her. Turns out they do know each other. And Regina wants Jefferson to do a job for him, and she'll pay him so that Grace gets the life she deserves because they're poor. He agrees, and we see him get out an old hat box where he takes the queen to where? It's a portal. The hat, you go, and you turn the hat, and it becomes a portal, and where does it take them? Wonderland. So Emma wakes up, and she's tied up, but she's really awesome, and she unties herself because she's a girl boss. She goes to explore the house, and she finds Mary Margaret has also been kidnapped by this crazy Jefferson guy and has been tied up. They try to escape, but Jefferson catches them. He's like, no, bestie, I actually need you to do something for me. He's like, yeah, none of us can leave because of the curse, and I know that you're the savior. And she's like, why do you know about Henry's book? He's like, yeah, but you're the savior, so you have magic, and I need you to make my hats work again so I can get my daughter Grace back, because the curse is living with a different family because of the curse. And she's like, you're mad. You think you're the Mad Hatter. The tea, the hat. There you go. The crazy behavior. So back in Wonderland, we're in Wonderland now, he's like, okay, bestie, the hat brought 2 travelers, and only 2 can go out, 2 comes in, 2 go out. We need to stick together. And Regina's like, got it, get it, got it, good. They go to the hedge maze of the Queen of Hearts, and they enter a crypt that looks just like Regina's in the Enchanted Forest. Regina steals a heart, and using a bit of magic mushroom makes her dad appear. So now her dad's there. And she's like, cool. And Jefferson's like, hold on, I promised Grace I'd be home for tea. And she's like, that's so crazy. I'm actually the evil queen, and I'm going back with my dad now. And so Dad and Regina leave, and Jefferson is captured by the Queen of Hearts, who's not on here yet, and is forced to make hats for the rest of his days. But because they took his one magic hat, none of his hats work, and that's how he goes mad. Isn't that like a good, that's a good storyline? I don't know. I think so. Back in Storybrooke, we find out that Grace's name is Paige. She's living with another family. Jefferson is going mad because remember when Graham went mad? He's the only one who remembers besides these 2 who are villains. Emma starts playing along, trying to talk him down, and is like, okay, I pretend I remember because you know what? I want to believe you. Because if you're right and we're all cursed, that woman next door who's tied up is my mother. And I'm an orphan, and I want to believe that more than anything. And then she hits him with his telescope and knocks him out, and she's like, you're such a crazy bitch. They push him out the window, but he disappears, leaving only his hat. So random, weird. Mary Margaret is like, okay, it's time to take me back to the station. And Emma's like, okay, let me give you the choice between staying or running, because I've been running my entire life and you'll never feel happy and content again. And if you stay here, we're going to figure this out together because you're my friend. You're my family now. So Mary Margaret decides to stay. Turns out Gold and Regina had been collabing. They'd been in their collab era, which doesn't happen often. They planted the key, making a deal together because they both expected her to run and incriminate herself even more. Okay, season 1, episode 18, The Stable Boy. Really zooming through these. Podcast era. So, 1 week ago in Storybrooke, Gold goes up to Regina. He's like, hey, you know how I've got those battery charges against me for beating up my girlfriend's dad? Could you get those to drop if I make sure these 2 never end up together? And Regina's like, okay, I'm listening. And he's like, okay, if something bad happened to Catherine and Mary Margaret got blamed, she'd be ruined and you would win, and these 2 would never end up together, and I guess the curse would never be broken. And Regina's like, okay, but a trial would be messy. And he's like, okay, but what if I planted one of your keys in her cell so that she escaped and tried to leave Storybrooke? Because we know what happens to anyone who tries to leave Storybrooke. Interesting. Back in the Enchanted Forest, we see a young-looking Regina, a young girly pop. And guess what? She's a horse girl. Remember that? She's a horse girl. Who would have thought? She is showing off on her horse for her mom and her dad. Where's her mom? Let's find her. Enter Cora. Remember her? She's very important. Her mom, Cora, is not very impressed. She's like, you ride like a man. Who's going to marry you? You're going to become an old maid and be nothing. And Regina tries to walk away, but Cora stops her with magic. Cora has the magic that we've seen the evil queen and Rumpelstiltskin using this whole time. And kind of abuses her with it. Stops her physically and just isn't abusive, not cool. Anyway, we see that Regina is in love with this stable boy named Daniel. This is not a good picture. It's so dark. Mystery boy is no longer such a mystery. Got it? Write that down. Daniel wants Regina to tell her parents that they're in love, but Regina's like, my mom would not approve. She's got magic. Suddenly, she hears someone screaming, help, help! There is a young girl on a runaway horse screaming, and so Regina hops on her horse, because she's a horse girl, runs and saves her. And you know who this young girl is. None other than a young Snow White, played by Bailey Madison of Wizards of Waverly Place fame. Write that down. So Snow White is the daughter of the recently widowed king. Remember, she's got a mom, but her mom's been dead the whole time, because moms. The king is so impressed that he asks Regina to marry him. But Regina remembers she's in love with David, so she doesn't, or not David, Daniel, whatever his name is. she doesn't want to do that a little bit. So they plan to run away together. They kiss, but who sees them but a young Snow White kissing? And she's like, but I thought you were in love with my dad. And Regina's like, I'm not in love with your dad. I'm in love with Daniel. I can't marry your dad, but you can't tell my mom any of this. So Snow promises, 10-year-old Snow promises to keep this secret. Meanwhile, Emma is at a loss for everything. Mary Margaret is looking worse than ever. So August gives her the idea to go back to the Troll Bridge and investigate, because that's where the scene of the crime was. And Emma finds a shard of a shovel at the scene of the crime. Henry helps her bring it to Regina's garage, and they match it with like a broken shovel, like it pieces click together like a puzzle. Then Emma gets a verdict telling Regina to open her garage, and Regina's like, that's crazy. When she opens it, the shovel's in one piece. Emma goes to August, and she's like, bitch, you told Regina that I was coming after her. He's like, I would never betray you. I'm not a liar. Meanwhile, Regina goes to Mary Margaret to taunt her again. Mary Margaret's like, I'm innocent. I didn't kill Catherine. And Regina's like, I know. I was just watching you suffer. Mary Margaret's like, what did I ever do to you? Back in the Enchanted Forest, Cora catches on to the fact that Snow might know something about Regina's weird behavior. And after a bit of guilt tripping, Snow says, Regina's in love with Daniel, but please let them be together. And Cora's like, that's so interesting. Thank you so much for being honest, Snow. Regina goes to Daniel to run away with them, but they're caught by Cora, who's like, I grew up a miller's daughter. Remember that. I gave up everything to get us out of poverty, and this is how you repay me. And she uses her magic to rip out Daniel's heart and kills him. And she's like, Regina, bestie, love is weakness, but power endures forever. And now you're going to be the queen. I did this all for you, my daughter. Anyway, Snow comes up to her later and she's like, I'm so happy there's going to be a wedding. You and Daniel are getting married. I told your mom, and I knew she would let you get married to Daniel. And Regina's like, this dress is for your dad. Daniel ran away, but we're going to be a family now. And we can tell she begins to hate Snow because, Cora comes in, they exchange a few thinly veiled, like, I hate yous, and Regina puts the pieces together, and she's like, Snow's horse didn't go wild on its own, did it? Cora's like, I wouldn't know. Back in Storybrooke, Mary Margaret gets taken for the trial. Emma is so upset that she throws a vase of flowers on the floor, because Sydney had given her flowers earlier. She finds, like, a bug, like, for spying, like a little chip in the vase, and that's how Regina knew about the shovel. Emma goes back to Granny's to, I don't remember what she was doing, but she hears someone scream bloody murder in the alleyway, and it's Ruby who runs, and she's like, I just saw Catherine in the alleyway. And guess who's in the alleyway, covered in dirt, with her memories lost? Catherine. Season 1, Episode 19, The Return. We open to August in his room at Granny's, seizing up and sweating. He's falling out of bed. He's having leg cramps. It's a moment. He calls someone and he's like, this is taking too long. We have to accelerate the plan. Turns out he's collabing with Henry on Operation Cobra. Henry goes into Mr. Gold's shop. He's distracting Gold while August sneaks around the back. They're caught, but they played off. Meanwhile, Emma visits Catherine in the hospital, who doesn't remember anything besides being trapped in a basement. She woke up on a field on the edge of town and walked back. So it turns out the results in the hospital saying that the heart was Catherine's were faked. So now we know for sure someone's framing Mary Margaret. Back in Gold's shop, Regina is like, why didn't you kill her? To Gold. And Gold's like, I said something tragic would happen. I didn't say that she would die. That was our deal. Tragedy, not death. Regina's like, why did you do this? You were in on the curse from the beginning. You want the curse. She's like, why do you want the curse broken? He's like, figure that one out on your own. Anyway, remember Balefire? Remember him? We see him in the Enchanted Forest, playing in the streets, but everyone treats him differently because they're afraid of his father, who's the big bad Rumplestiltskin with the dagger. Rumplestiltskin pretty much kills anyone who messes with Bay, and it's not a good look. So he's upset, he resents his father's magic, but Rumple is obsessed with power. This is pre-Belle, by the way, so ignore Belle. Sorry, Belle. He wants to protect Bay. Rumple's like, I stopped the ogre war. I'm doing good. And Bay's like, okay, but if there was a way you could get rid of your magic, would you? And he's like, sure. You know what, if it didn't hurt you, if it didn't hurt me. So they have a welcome home Mary Margaret party, because turns out she didn't kill Catherine, and Henry's classmates give her a big card that say, we're so glad you didn't kill Mrs. Nolan. She's like, thanks, guys. So that's good. Meanwhile, Emma approaches Gold. She's like, why do I get the impression that you made Catherine materialize out of nowhere? And he's like, guess you'll never know. Meanwhile, Gold sneaks into August's room and finds an exact photo of the Dark One dagger. Gold starts following August around. He goes to the convent. They just kind of go around. And Gold goes up to Mother Superior, and he's like, what does August want here? And she's like, I already paid the rent. He's like, no, this is not about the rent. And she's like, okay, he thinks he found his father after a long search. Gold is like, interesting. Okay. So Gold goes to Archie, and Archie's like, I already paid the rent. And Gold is like, no. I'm here because I think my son came back to Storybrooke, and I think he wants to kill me. Back in the Enchanted Forest, Bay tries to play with some kids, but they run away, and he's trying to find, so he's not having a good time. He finds out that there's a creature that can take away Rumpelstiltskin's power. So this prompts Bay to go find the creature, who turns out to be the Blue Fairy. And she's like, I can't take away your father's magic, but I can send you to a land without magic via this magic bean. It is the only bean left in existence that can send you to another land. And Bay goes to Rumple. He's like, I found a way. We made a deal. Let's do it. And Rumple's like, He kind of likes his magic a little too much. Bay's like, we made a deal, but Rumple backs out. So Bay uses the bean to open a portal, and he gets sucked into this portal that goes to a land without magic. And Rumple is holding onto the edge, and he's like, I don't want to go. And Bay's like, you're a coward, and you broke our deal. And so Bay gets sucked in, and Rumple stays in the Enchanted Forest without a son. Gold goes up to August, and he's like, I know who you are. And August is like, oh, really, Papa? And Gold is like, okay, Bay, you were always right. I'm a coward, but everything I did was for you. And I'm sorry. And they embrace, and they're both crying, and August is like, I was looking for the dagger, because if I found it, it would be proof you hadn't changed. And Gold's like, listen, I've changed. I buried it. I'll give it to you to prove that I've changed. And so August is like, okay, cool, thanks, gets the dagger from the ground. And it's like, all right, I command thee, Dark One. And Gold is like, Bay would never try and command me. You're not my son. And August is like, you're right, but I need this because I'm sick. I'm going to die. Remember his aneurysm? And I need magic. And Gold is like, okay, good luck with that. Get Emma to believe, and then you'll get your magic. So he's not actually Rumple's son. Spoiler alert. Season 1, Episode 20, The Stranger. So Emma is talking to August. They're chatting along because they're besties, and she's like, I'm getting Mr. Gold's help to build a custody case against Regina, because Regina has proven herself, not proven, nothing's proven. I'm pretty sure Regina put this all together. We're pretty sure Regina framed Mary Margaret. And Emma's like, she should not be mother. And Mary Margaret is like, if you win, you'll get custody of Henry. Are you ready for that? And Emma's like, of course. So Henry calls Emma to Granny's, and he's like, look, there's a new story in the book. Someone added it. And it's the story of Pinocchio. In the Enchanted Forest, we meet Pinocchio and Geppetto. And they're on their little boat. The storm is raging. Have you seen the movie? They get eaten by a whale or something. I don't remember. And they're being chased by a whale. Geppetto washes on shore with wooden Pinocchio, who's lifeless boy. But the Blue Fairy comes to grant them a wish, makes Pinocchio a real boy. As long as he is brave, truthful, and unselfish, he will remain a real boy. August has the same hat that Pinocchio wears in this scene. See that hat? It's cute. Who do we think August is? August Bestie has one of his little seizures, and he pulls up his leg, and his leg is turning into wood. Mary Margaret confronts Regina, who's like, girlie, I don't know why you did what you did. Obviously, you framed me. But you must be incredibly sad and lonely to find so much joy in someone else's suffering. And Regina's like, August goes to Gold's shop and sees Storybrooke Geppetto there. And Gold is like, oh, is this the first time you've seen your father since coming to Storybrooke? Did not take him long to put the pieces together when August was not Balefire, but was Pinocchio. August is like, okay, that's my business. But Gold agrees to give Emma a gentle nudge in the direction of believing in the curse, because now many people want this curse broken. And he does this by refusing to help Emma get custody of Henry. Meanwhile, this is a random subplot. Regina fakes her car breaking down so that David gives her a ride home. When they get home, they see that Henry has left a note saying he's going to be at Archie's for dinner, but the camera pans over. The note is blank. This happens a lot. But David believes. Anyway, David decides to say, she tries to kiss him, and he's like, no, thank you. Random subplot. Back in the Enchanted Forest, the Blue Fairy tells Geppetto that the evil queen is enacting a curse. Do you remember this? It was in episode 1. And asks him to build a wardrobe that will save baby Emma from the curse. And she says the wardrobe will only take 2 people. Remember, episode 1 it was 1 person, but now it's 2. So she's like, we have to send Snow and baby Emma. And Geppetto's like, hold on. In this new land, will my boy be... Like, will he die? Because he's not a real boy. He's wood. But he's a real boy now. It's a whole thing. Blue Fairy's like, I don't know. And Geppetto's like, I will do it if Pinocchio accompanies Emma. Because I will not do it if this curse is going to kill him. We have to give him his best chance. Just like we have to give Emma her best chance. So the Blue Fairy's like, okay, we'll lie to Snow and Charming. Say it can only take 1. Send a pregnant Snow and Pinocchio. But we know that Snow had her baby before she could get in the wardrobe. Meanwhile, August takes Emma on a bike ride out of Storybrooke to share his story. He takes her to a side of a highway by a diner. He's like, do you know where we are? And she's like, yeah. I was found by a 7-year-old boy on the side of a highway. You know, after I was born. And he's like, yeah, I was that 7-year-old boy. And then they go to the woods where he claims she came through from the magic wardrobe. And he starts telling her this, and she's like, dude, you're crazy. You're listening to Henry too much. Like, this is ridiculous. He's like, fine, let me show you. And he tries to show her his leg of wood, but she does not believe so much that she doesn't see the wood being wood. She starts freaking out, and she's like, you are telling me I have to break this curse. You are telling me I'm responsible for everyone's happiness. I am just a kid who grew up in foster care. I am not responsible for anything. I can't even be responsible for my own son. I grew up without parents. This is all ridiculous. You guys are messing with me. And she's freaking out. And we see a lot of her insecurities pop out because she has had a hard life. We get a flashback to Pinocchio and baby Emma because they just came through the wardrobe. They're in a foster home in our real world. But Pinocchio gets brought by a group of boys who are like, hey, we're going to get out of here, but you can't bring your baby sister or baby friend. So he's like, sorry, Emma. And he leaves her. And that's how Emma grew up alone. He was supposed to help her break the curse, but he was only 7, and so he didn't really know any better. He was selfish and not thoughtful, and he left. And you know what? That's the human condition. It's that he was 7 years old. And so meanwhile, Emma sits Henry down, and she's like, listen, this is crazy. Do you want to get away from Regina for good? And he's like, yeah. She's like, okay, I'm taking you now. We're leaving Storybrooke. Which I do think is legally kidnapping. But also, she also had someone kidnapped and someone else framed for murder. So, what can you do? Season 1, episode 21, An Apple as Red as Blood. We open to see Regina and Henry eating dinner together because despite everything, they're still mother and son. Emma rings the doorbell and she's like, I came for you. And suddenly, all the storybook characters are there to burn Regina at the stake. We realize it's a dream. I totally forgot about this scene, so I was rewatching it. I was like, what is going on? Anyway, so clearly she's getting worried that the curse is getting close to being broken because she's not wrong. We only have 2 episodes left and she kind of knows that. Anyway, Henry and Emma are in the car and Henry's like, no, you can't run again. You have to break the curse. So on the town line, Henry grabs the steering wheel, count the car crashes because this is like the 4th or 5th one of this season, causing them to crash. Back in the Enchanted Forest, remember how Charming got captured? Me neither. The king brings him in and puts him on like the guillotine. Suddenly we're in France because he's about to get guillotined. But guess who turns the blade into water as soon as it comes down? Miss Regina, the evil queen. Regina wants Charming as her prisoner. It's funny because we get a shot of Charming being like, what is going on? Like, why do so many people want me prisoner? Just kill me. So now he's her prisoner. Back in Storybrooke, remember Regina's apple tree? Remember that? She cut it down in like the 2nd episode. It starts to rot. And she's like, what is this symbolism? What do we think this means? She goes to Gold and she's like, hey, my tree's dying. And he goes, maybe it's your fertilizer. She's like, no. the curse is breaking. He's like, good luck, because you can't kill Emma, because killing Emma will break the curse, because Gold designed it that way. And Gold, for some reason, can't undo that. Plot, we don't know why. Emma goes back to the apartment, and Mary Margaret is like, you ran away. I thought we were past this running away stage with you. You're reverting back to the person you were when you first got here. And Emma's like, I don't know what to do. I just need my son. We both know that running is not what's best for Henry, because you have to do what's right, and that is not running away. Regina summons Jefferson because Gold won't help her. Jefferson, they're using a tiny bit of magic that Regina has in Storybrooke to use his hat to pull one item from the enchanted forest. They can't go all the way back, but they have enough magic to pull one item. So they do that. Oh, because she'll give him his daughter back. So they're going to go do that. In the enchanted forest, we see Snow, the dwarves, Granny, Red, all going to save Prince Charming from the Queen. There's some badass fighting scenes. It's all very badass. Snow is about to rescue Charming. She enters the cell when she realizes it's a mirror, and she's only talking to a mirror of Charming. And they're like touching it, and they're like, I love you, I will always find you. And Regina like poofs into the mirror, and she goes, I have no interest in cleaning tongue marks off my mirror. Anyway, these two girly pops agree to a parlay to talk things out, because this war is getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand. Emma talks to Archie about getting custody of Henry, but they really have no case, because ever since Emma came into their lives, everything's been chaos, and it's not her fault. But what are you gonna do? Meanwhile, Regina and Jefferson use this magic ring of Daniel's, the only magic from Storybrooke, to get an apple out of the enchanted forest. One single poisoned apple. Back in the enchanted forest, Regina and Snow meet at the barn where Daniel was killed, and she's like, this is Daniel's grave, and Snow's like, your mom told me Daniel ran away. No, but Regina's like, no, she killed him. She murdered, dead. But then Snow was like, well, you killed my father, like, aren't we even? Regina's like, it's never gonna stop unless you take this apple willingly and you eat it, because if I don't, I'm gonna kill David. Sucks to suck, or James, whatever his name is now, Charming. Snow's like, fine. She takes the apple, and she gets put under the sleeping curse, which makes your brain is alive, but your entire body is dead. Magic. Back in Storybrooke, Regina has this same exact apple that she took out of this moment in time when she put Snow under the sleeping curse, and she says the words, now I just have to solve my next conundrum, how to get this savior to taste my forbidden fruit. It's funny. Anyway. She bakes this apple into an apple turnover to give to Emma. Emma comes over and she's like, bestie, we need to talk. This thing with me in town is not working. I leave, but I still get to visit Henry. But you have full custody of Henry for the rest of our days. And Regina's like, sounds good. Gives her the peace offering, which is the apple turnover from the poison magic apple. And Emma's like, oh, thanks. See ya. Back in the enchanted forest, everyone thinks Snow is dead. We know that. In Storybrooke, Henry comes over to Emma's and she's like, listen, I gotta go away for a while. I can still see you, but this is not working out. And Henry's like, no, it's my mom. She's the evil queen. She is manipulating you. And Emma's like, no, this is real adult business. I need to leave. And then Henry spies the apple turnover and he's like, what is that? She's like, an apple turnover. And he goes, apple? You know who my mom is. And Emma's like, Henry, not everything is about the curse. I need you to believe me. And he's like, okay, fine. He goes, you may not believe in the curse or in me, but I believe in you. And he takes a bite of the apple turnover and he passes out. He's done. Last episode, season 1, episode 22, A Land Without Magic. So David, remember, he's trapped by the evil queen in the enchanted forest, and he fights out Flynn Rider style. Ever seen that scene in Tangled? It's really hot. Guess who helps him? The huntsman, Christian Grey, helps him, because remember, he's been working for the evil queen, but he's actually a goody two-shoes. He's a good guy. And Christian Grey gets him out to help him find Snow White. Back in Storybrooke, they're rushing Henry to the hospital because they can't figure out what's wrong with him. Dr. Whale is like, where is he? Dr. Whale is like, I don't know what's wrong with him. It's like, he just passed out. It's almost like, and Emma's like, it's almost like magic. Henry was right. Henry was right this entire time. And she realizes Regina did this, and we get this incredible scene where Regina, like, Like, where Emma fights Regina in a closet. And Regina's like, the apple turnover was meant for you. And Emma's like, so Henry was right this entire time. You were trying to kill me. And it backfired because now he's gonna die. Regina and Emma need to team up and they go to who for help but Mr. Gold, who goes by Rumplestiltskin. In the Enchanted Forest, Charming, he's on the run. And he runs into Rumplestiltskin, who wants to help. He's got David's mother's ring. And David's mother's ring will guide him to wherever Snow White is. It's enchanted to find Snow for a price. They have a brief, sword fight before David agrees, because nobody trusts Rumple. Who is going to trust Rumplestiltskin at this stage in the game? He's kind of a little bitch. But David agrees because he needs to find Snow. Rumple's like, okay, cool. Here is a bottle of potion, True Love. I need you to put it in the belly of this beast, Maleficent. She's a dragon. I need you to put it inside of her. She eats it. Yum. And David's like, why would I do this? And he's like, well, you love her, don't you? You love Snow. And David goes, what would you know about love? He goes, I was in love once. It was a brief flicker of light amidst an ocean of darkness. He's talking about Belle. And then David's like, okay, but what do you want this bottle for? And he's like, it's just for a rainy day. Don't worry about it. So Gold, bestie, tells Emma in Storybrooke that he bottled True Love. And when he created the dark curse, he put a drop of True Love on the parchment as a failsafe that could break the curse. And you know who's the product of True Love? Emma is. Got it? And Emma's like, so where is it? And he's like, oh, well, I saved some for a rainy day. And Emma goes, well, it's storming like a bitch, so where is it? Turns out it's hidden inside of her. Who's her? Maleficent the dragon. Rumple gives Emma her father's sword because they need to defeat the dragon. Turns out there's a secret basement in the clock tower where the dragon has lived for 28 years, this entire time. So remember Maleficent from episode 1? David is trying to put the potion bottle inside her dragon belly. At the same time, Emma is trying to get it out. You know, it's the flashback, but we're getting it back and forth. So at the same time, Emma goes down carrying the same sword that David's using, and it's like that scene from Shrek where they're trying to kill the dragon. You've seen Shrek, right? And goes between scenes because they're father and daughter, and they're both fighting the same dragon. It's all very cute, and roll the clip of me and Eve watching it. Oh, see, look, it's going back and forth.
What?
Because it's
not gonna... She's gonna... No!
No!
Yeah!
But see how it's cinematic because it's going back and forth between father and daughter. And
that is so revolutionary.
They're using the same sword too. She'll go back to the sword in a minute. Don't worry, viewers. Oh wow. Oh wow. So then, while all this is happening, Mary Margaret is reading the storybook to Henry while he's in the coma. And it's the scene where Prince Charming kisses Snow White and it's True Love's kiss. And guess what happens? Henry starts going into cardiac arrest. By the way, also Jefferson is mad that Regina, she didn't follow through on the deal and get Paige back because Emma didn't die, right? Does that make sense? So he sneaks into the asylum and frees Belle and tells Belle to go find Mr. Gold and tell her that Regina locked her up because that would make Mr. Gold mad at Regina because we want Mr. Gold mad at Regina. So Belle is free, so Belle goes to find Mr. Gold. David succeeds in putting the potion in the beast. David is like, why do you want us to succeed so badly? And Rumple's like, I'm a fan of True Love, and more importantly, what it creates. Rumple has been planning this fail-safe of Emma, this dark curse. He's been planning the dark curse before Regina even got wind of it, before these two were even married, before Regina planned the dark curse. He was planning this fail-safe, Emma Swan, years, at least 9 months, before everyone. And why? I think it's because he wants to find Balefire, because Balefire is in the land without magic. So Emma is struggling to defeat the dragon. Luckily, the sword works, and she kills Maleficent, I think, and she finds the bottled love potion. So David starts to leave town, because anytime they want more attention, they have someone leave town. And Emma's coming up the elevator. She gets stuck, but Gold's like, hey, listen, Regina sabotaged the elevator. Throw up the bottle. She's like, hey, cool, got it, you're my bestie. And he's like, thanks so much, and he leaves. And he's gone. He just betrayed Emma and Regina. Gold is opening the egg, and who walks into the shop but Belle French herself? And she's like, hey, Regina locked me up for 28 years. He's like, And so they kiss. It's really cute. They don't kiss, they hug, and he's like, I'll take care of you, don't worry about it. In the Enchanted Forest, remember the first scene of the whole show where Prince Charming is riding like hell to go save Snow White. We see that again, and we get that scene, and he's riding to save Snow White. And he goes, and he's like, am I too late? He's like, let me say goodbye. And so the dwarves are there, and they take the casket off, and he kisses her, and it's the kiss of true love, and she wakes up. And she goes, you found me. And he goes, did you ever doubt I would? And then he proposes to her, and they decide to take back the kingdom together. Meanwhile, okay, so Belle is with Gold, and Gold and Belle go to the well. Do you remember the well where August and Emma had a drink where like it could bring anything lost to you? And Gold is like, hey, cool. I'm gonna dump this in the well. And Belle's like, why would you do that? We'll get to that in a second. At the hospital, everyone's at the hospital because Henry's in cardiac arrest. He's gonna die. But Emma believes, and so they think he's dead. And so she's like, let me at least say goodbye. She kisses her son on the forehead, and guess what? It's the kiss of true love, and it breaks the curse, and everyone remembers. And Henry wakes up, and he's like, you broke the curse. And oh, it's so cute. We get Pan, Snow, David, Red, Granny, everyone remembers. And like Snow and Charming, they see each other from across the way, and they run to each other, and they kiss, and they're together forever again. And it's so good. And Regina goes up to Henry, because everyone's like, Regina, we know you did this. She's like, Henry, no matter what they tell you, no matter what anyone says, remember that I love you. And Henry's like, okay. And then Mother Superior's like, Regina, you better go, because we're going to be knocking on your door soon. So Regina goes into hiding. Meanwhile, Gold and Belle are at the well, and he drops the true love in it. And she's like, what are you doing that for? And he's like, I'm bringing back magic. She's like, why would you do that? He goes, because magic is power. And so everyone's happy. Everyone's got their memories back. You know, Henry's alive. Snow and Charming are together. Emma believes finally. And they see this purple fog rolling in from the well. And it envelops them. We see the purple smoke envelop everyone. Charming and Snow embrace. And that's the end of season 1. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was very difficult to make. I kind of want to do season 2. This was very rewarding. It was a lot of work, and I don't get paid for this, so please share this, give it a like, comment down below, because I put a lot of heart and thought into this, and it was a really fun exercise in kind of just remembering and like revisiting what I love about good solid TV, because I do think that this season of Once Upon a Time is one of the best shows I've ever seen, and I'm not just saying that. So yeah, this is what I'm doing with my English major. If you want to support, feel free to subscribe, and maybe I'll do season 2. See you guys.